Let's go. He can lose the game right here or come back and win. Oh, he's taking a while. There it is. He's clogged up. He's fighting this all clogged up. He has a shield battery, but he's not fighting by the shield batteries. Yeah, and that's it. I mean, I kind of anticipated this. One of Little Reaper's weaknesses is against drops. There's no Storm, no DT. And I love the fact that he's going back to the shield batteries. But that's just too much firepower for Terran here. And unfortunately, this game is just going to keep going Deepu's way. Little Reaper, no more, nothing, just that. And that's it. I mean, look, I said I won't call it. I'm going to call it. There's no way Deepu is going to throw this hard. Little Reaper could throw hard, but not Deepu. Especially with the healing Terran units. Now, I don't know why he's even lifting. There's one Stalker in here. I think he's just playing with his food right now. He's just having fun now because he knows he's way ahead of Little Reaper. And Little Reaper doesn't have anything. 11 supply. This is GG, guys. I don't care. I said I won't call it, but it's not possible for Little Reaper to come back. He had a good chance in game. Well, he should have won game 1. Game 2, he could have even won, but you can see the flaws in this game, and he's, we'll see how he corrects it for the playoffs, if he makes the playoffs. So
let's see if he actually can harass here with it. Ooh, he has his own DTs, but there is a observer here, so he can deal with this. Warps in. There is an immortal, pops in at the right time, but at the same time, these units are really good against immortals. Yeah, I think he can clean this up. He can easily blink in here. Oh, takes out. Yeah, look at these Archons doing a flank, but they are out of position. They're probably gonna get picked off here. It's running away. Shields are being drained. It is gonna get to safety before the other units are there to help out. And this is the big battle. Who's gonna win this battle? There are a lot of Stalkers here. 2 Immortals on each side. These Archons are reigning supreme though. Look at that splash damage. Do a number. And I think he's gonna win this battle handily. Blinks underneath. Takes out all of the units, including the Warp Prism. There are a lot of DTs here. Where is his Observer? The Observer got picked off? It probably got picked off because of Neutrophil's own Observer and the Phoenix, so he's able to. Now this Stasis Ward gets a number of units. Alright, so now this is Freedom being in the aggression. He sees carrier production. Oh no! While these DTs are just shelling at the bottom, swiping at everything, unseen. And I think Neutrophil is gonna clean this up. There are no observers here still. Let's look at these DTs. 1 kill, 2 kills, and 5 kills. Not as much as I thought, but I think they really wounded the rest of the army. But more Blink Stalkers here. There is an observer in production. It's almost done. Yeah, but he needs to warp in more units here. 2 Immortals are in the way. He can go to the safety of the cannons to be able to see, but he blinks in to be able to pick off one of the carriers. He does. Is he gonna pick off another? Is he gonna blink forward to get that one more carrier? But all the Stalkers have already fallen. He does get it with a final shot. Look at these slow warp-ins, but it was enough. Alright, Neutrophil takes the supply lead because these carriers just they take up a lot of supply, and it's a good thing for Freedom to pick off a few of those carriers already. You don't want that to swell up enough. Alright, there is an observer here now, but there are no more DTs. It's been converted to an Archon. Is this enough? You need to warp in some more. But Freedom is trapped for cash. He warps in 4 more Stalkers. Is he gonna go for it? No.
All right, guys, welcome. We're back. Let's see. Let's add Sep here. We also have ET casting tonight, guys. What's up, Sep?
Hello, hello.
What's up? What's
What's
up?
up, ET? So yeah, it's day 24. And we've
Is
got some
it?
great matchups tonight, as you guys can see.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to play one of the 2v2 games. The Blind Leading the Depth versus Benzel. Blind Leading the Depth is playing Tortoise and Hare on our second match tonight, but unfortunately, Benzel won't. Sir Maligan has a medical situation that he needs to take care of, is not able to play tonight, so we're going to have to schedule that later. But yeah, these are pretty cool games here. We're going to start off with Hyper Turtle versus the Archaic, followed by that 2v2 game that I mentioned. And we're going to finish it off with Neutrophil versus Freedom, which is a very important game as well. But before all of that, ET, how are you, ET?
Doing quite well. Glad to be here.
Good. So, have you been? I see you lurk on chat in FSL here and there. But what do you think of the season so far? And any surprises that you've seen?
It's been pretty good, I think, overall. I was surprised for sure with just how dominant Fenrir was. I was thinking that Cloak was probably going to dominate Code B, so that was a bit of a surprise. Obviously, that's a little bit more old news. Instability, I knew Instability was probably going to do better this season, but just how much better she's done, I mean, only dropping one series is pretty impressive. Obviously, still has one more to go, but that was pretty surprising to me. And then the 2v2s have just been, upsets left and right, it feels like, so it's been really cool to see.
Yeah, you're right. 2v2 has just been chaotic a lot of the times. It's so hard to cast them, but that's what makes it exciting. And also, what you mentioned, Fenrir taking that division undefeated, surprising, but he's done well. Cloak, however, didn't make the playoffs, and I think because he dabbled with the idea of playing a random, and his Terran and Zerg just weren't up to snuff. And so he lost enough games because of that. So maybe next season for Cloak. But yeah, Fenrir, Champone, and Kitty Cat Gamer will duke it out on a 3-player bracket for Code B. So I'm excited about that. And yes, as you said, Instability is sitting pretty there. It's 6-1 with 1 game to go. So, we'll see how this shakes out. But the only other 1-loss person there is Dark Menace, which she already beat. And so she already has a head-to-head tiebreaker. So all she has to do is just win her last game, and she would secure that coveted number 1 seed. So we'll see how that goes. But we're going to be starting off with Code A tonight. KJ, what do you think about this matchup? The Archaic and Hyper Turtle.
Ooh. Let's see. We favor the Archaic, but Hyper Turtle is dangerous, right? It really just depends on what race he chooses, although he's gotten better with all 3. But I still favor the Archaic, probably a 2-1 or a 2-0.
Gotcha. Now, so this is an important game for Hyper Turtle. This is his last game, and so he needs to get 3 wins to even have a shot for the playoffs. But at the same time, head-to-head, the Archaic and Hyper Turtle did play in FSL Season 4. And Hyper Turtle came out victorious in that one. So we'll see how it goes tonight. The Archaic seems to fare a lot better this season. He's at 4-1.
Yeah.
I think he's gonna make the playoffs. But with a victory here, that will cement it. And speaking of those two, let's actually bring them in so we can chat with them. And all right, joining us now, we have our Code A players for tonight: Hyper Turtle and the Archaic. Gentlemen, how are you guys doing? Let's start with Hyper Turtle. I know you're a stats guy. You monitor what's going on in the standings and also your chances and how you scout your opponent. But you know that you're under the gun here. This is your last game and you need this victory to have a shot at the playoffs. Have you been preparing, and what do you like? How do you like your chances for tonight's game?
No, I've mostly been preparing the 2v2 stuff because the League bug doesn't throw me in bronze every time I place on that. So, I'm up to date on my play, but definitely a lot more focused on my chances in 2v2.
Gotcha. And you are not playing a Masters player there with the border of the Archaic. That's the recurring bug by the Blizzard is introduced. But the Archaic is a player that you beaten last season, right? And so have you been studying what he's been doing this season and see what you can do to address his play?
Only briefly. I haven't had a lot of spare time as far as afternoons go.
Gotcha. And last question for me. I know you have selected Protoss, but you've been changing up races all throughout the season. What's your plan tonight?
To just hit hard, hit fast, hit strong.
Gotcha.
You know, so no Ultralisk switch like I got him with last season.
All right, KJ, questions?
Before we do that, I think the Archaic's camera just bugged out, so you may need to log on. But for Hyper Turtle, first of all, nice job last week casting, right? How was that? How was that like for you? You know these people. You played against them.
Honestly, a lot of the time I didn't know. Quite a few of them I didn't know. There was quite a bit of me pointing something out and it's just, no, he always does that. But I definitely didn't run out of things to talk about, so it's something I definitely want to experiment with more during the off season, especially with some of those custom map tours that I'm hoping I can attract other people to.
There you go.
And in honor of Blizzard lead Mike Abari, who's been teasing the StarCraft people, I'm wearing the same T-shirt that he was showing off on Twitter to get everyone excited but confused.
Look at that, yeah.
The one from the Legacy of the Void BlizzCon announcement.
Yep. Well, I'm not gonna ask you strategy or anything, but are you having fun this current season?
Yeah, I am, and it's also it's encouraging me to do a lot of other stuff too. So I'm definitely branching out and trying my hand at some things like content creation and working with other people to practice and explore.
Yeah.
So it's definitely benefited me, and it's definitely kept me at my computer a lot more.
Great. And now we have the Archaic here back on video at least. So the opponent right there. The Archaic, how you feeling?
I did not practice much. But I'm not sure how I feel
I
about
don't think
this.
we can ask these guys any strat questions, Seth, or anything, race questions. So we're just gonna ask them feelings. So we'll ask you feelings after the games too. How about any words to your opponent besides "good luck, have fun"?
Have fun, good luck. It's like
Technically, he did exactly what I said. So
it's like let's have a good game. And
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Alright.
And it definitely looks like you're making the playoffs no matter what. I'm gonna do my best to keep the road at least a little bumpy. All right, pal.
Yeah, there you go. And ET, you got any questions for these two?
Well, there's not a whole lot I can ask. I feel like a bit of a Chinese interviewer here, but no, I think I'm all good to go.
All right. Well then.
All right. So with that, I'm gonna mute and deafen you both. Good luck and have fun. We'll talk to you guys after the match.
Yeah, and let's
And
show
that's-
the map selections too. that
Actually,
they put
while we mute and deafen our players here, we need our production to get on StarCraft so
Oh,
they
yeah,
can
duh.
observe.
I think we forgot about that. I've been on vacation mode that I forgot to do that. But while we're hopping on in there, you guys can see the map selections. You can talk about that real quick, Seth.
Yeah, so Hyper Turtle vetoing Blackburn and Berlingrad. I think he's not very. I wouldn't be comfortable with those maps either. I just want to stick with the standard in this scenario,
Yeah.
unless you have something prepared. And with him talking about just focusing on 2v2.
Yep.
So I think what we're gonna see here from Hyper Turtle is very vanilla, and just standard. And so they pretty much just pick standard maps here.
Well,
Hardwire, Atmosphere, and Glittering Ashes.
he didn't
you know,
commit
pretty
to
much.
the race either, right? Or actually, no, I see it now. He's gonna play Protoss. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, he is gonna play Protoss. He says he wants to hit hard, hit early, and let the
See.
chips fall where they may. So I think we are good to go.
Yeah, we'll hand it off
Players
to ET
are
here.
ready, and take it away, ET.
Alrighty. Well, we are starting off. It's going to be Hardwire LE, so a little bit of a standard-ish map. It's like a big map, but it feels big wide. It's not super long, so you definitely can get some big attacks coming in on it. So we'll see. Hyper Turtle obviously saying he's going to be a little bit aggressive. We have seen the Archaic is very capable of getting aggressive as well. So we'll see just how aggressive he decides to be here.
May have to pause. We have a prod issue right after it loads.
Alrighty. We're loading the game, but we potentially may be pausing. Alright, we are indeed pausing. And yeah, we saw Chumley Spamalot mention in chat, you actually, you can. They found out through personal experience and perseverance that you can get wrongly placed into Masters and 2v2s. Did manage that. And we're getting a quick glimpse at War Bunnies. War Bunnies, make sure to wave to the camera real quick. You've only got
it's
a
really
few
weird.
seconds.
The OBS is like acting up like crazy. So hang tight, guys. This is kind of funny. You guys get to see some of the players on there.
The background information that you're not allowed to see normally.
Yeah,
You're getting
the
you're getting the backstage pass tonight, everyone.
exactly. So while we're doing that, let's show the other screen for now. And you're gonna have to fill in time while I sort this out. So hang tight, guys.
Yeah. Well, hey, shout outs to our 2v2 players who are already on the cameras. They are ready and rearing to go. So big shout outs to them. So we'll be a PvP to start us off on Hardwire. Obviously, we're having a lot of GLHFing going back and forth, and the Archaics implying a cannon rush. PvP, the meta has shifted a little bit more back into that 2-gate, not the 1-gate low ground expand, because of the change to the shield batteries. Makes it a little bit easier to hold against early rushes and cheeses like that, where it'd become pretty difficult if you did try to go for the low ground. I'm personally a little bit sad about that in particular. I really liked that meta developing in PvP. I think it allowed for some cool new things. Obviously, Max Packs from Sidestorm Gaming was sort of the king of the low ground expansion in PvP over the last year or so. It's a little bit hard to see that going away, but I think the battery change was good overall. I don't think it was really made to address that meta. It's just one of those uncomfortable side effects that you do wind up having. We do have the beautiful V's of the players' probes. I guess you can't see those at the moment, but trust me, they're there.
So ET, how often do you play Protoss versus Zerg? I mean, Protoss instead of playing as Zerg.
Oh, yeah. So I did it a little bit more like last year. I got into it a little bit. I actually hadn't played much 1v1s until just recently. I've done a couple dozen games just recently, but I'd been practically retired for the last year and a half. I got a little bit tired of getting my face rocked by Void Rays over and over.
Yeah, but ever since the Void Ray got somewhat nerfed.
Yeah,
you
I've been getting
tried-
back into it. And now it's Blink Stalkers, which I much prefer. I like those a lot more than Void Rays. They at least take more than a blink of an eye to kill my hatcheries, so that's good. But I actually did play Protoss for a little while. I got up to about Masters 2. I beat a couple GM players as Protoss, so I was getting there. But I just Zerg has always felt the most fun to me, so I generally stick with it overall. But I have played a little bit. PvP was actually one of my favorite matchups as Protoss, funnily enough.
Yeah, for me, it seems to me that Protoss and Zerg, you can swap back and forth. It's the odd ball there is the Terran, where it's so hard to set your mindset when it is kind of tuned for Zerg or Protoss. And I have a hard time getting back to a Terran where it's just the infrastructure is different, the way it works is different, and just have a hard time. I just wanted to know what your thoughts about that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Terran's by far my worst race. I think I'm like mid-diamond with it, maybe. Funnily enough, I actually decided to place in as random a while back, and for whatever reason, it took my Zerg MMR for that. So I was like 5,800 at the time, like ranked like 30 GM. So I was playing against all the people I normally play against, but I was random instead of Zerg. And the only game I won was my one game as Terran. And I was like, you know what? I hate proxy 4-axes, so I'm going to proxy 4-axe. And I beat like a 6k Protoss with the proxy 4-axes Terran.
Is it no gas proxy 4x?
Yeah. Just like what we see Chumley do here in the 2v2 sometimes. And I beat him. I was pretty shocked, but it cemented my belief that proxy 4-axe is dumb forever in my mind. But yeah, funnily enough, my worst race is the only one I won a match as. I actually got Zerg like once, but I got it against a really good player that I normally play against, and he barely edged it out. But yeah, Terran's definitely my worst.
But Zerg's your best, and how high have you gotten with Zerg?
So Zerg, I almost cracked 6k. I was about 5950.
Oh wow!
Like rank 12 on the NA server at the time, I think. That was back when I was in college, and I had a lot of time to play. I work full time now, so it's a little bit harder to fit in practice time.
Yeah.
Especially with casting and everything like that, which I really enjoy casting, so I don't want to necessarily give that up either. But yeah, just under 6k. Just enough to eliminate me from a lot of tournaments, basically.
I think we're good to go, guys. Let's give it a try. We have to do some live fixing on production.
All right.
All right. Let's get this going. Players are ready. Let's kick it off.
And we are in. This is going to be a PvP. It's going to be Hardwire, LE. And we'll have to see exactly what strategies they opt for. I'd expect to see the 2-gate on the high ground out of both players. As I mentioned before, it's, the common thing. But anyways, in the upper right-hand side of the map, the yellow Protoss player, he is
Hyper Turtle.
And his opponent in the bottom left, it's our purple Protoss. He is
The Archaic.
Who is actually going for a low ground wall off. So as long as Hyper Turtle doesn't go for anything super aggressive, he should be fine, as he'll be able to get his Nexus out at a pretty reasonable timing, so that he can still have those better batteries from the Nexus. I guess I should talk a little bit about, just in case you aren't familiar with the patch, and don't necessarily quote me on the exact numbers. Basically, the change I'm talking about made it so that if a battery is not within range of a Nexus's battery overcharge ability, they only start with 50 energy instead of 100 energy, which is a big change, because each energy is like 3 points, I think, of shields. So it's the difference between being able to heal, 300 hit points on a Stalker and 150. Massive, right? Especially in PvP, whenever you have immortal all-ins and things like that. The batteries are very important, so it's a lot harder to go for low ground expands because your Nexus is not up in time to affect your batteries against those kinds of all-ins. Now, Hyper Turtle is going for a 2-gate, but it's a delayed 2-gate on the high ground. He's delayed his second gateway until after his Cyber Core, whereas the Archaic is going to be grabbing a 1-gate expand. Oh, and Void Ray. I think the Void Ray nerf kind of affected the 1-gate expand as well, because that was a big part of holding against Stalkers and Immortals and things like that, was you'd go for a quick Stargate, but I believe the Void Ray build time is like quite a bit longer now, which obviously hurts more in the early game than anywhere else. Nonetheless, we do have a pylon on the low ground for Hyper Turtle. He is aware of exactly what the Archaic was going for there. The Archaic is getting a quick shield battery, and you can see that because it is within range of the Nexus, even though the Nexus isn't done yet, I don't believe it matters, it will start with 100 energy. Oh, and he forgot his second pylon big time. Big time supply blocks for the Archaic here, somewhat unfortunately there. Does have a Zealot out and is able to get his tech out nonetheless. He's going for a robotics facility himself, whereas Hyper Turtle is going to get out a sentry for scouting and is adding on a 3rd gateway. Not necessarily all in at this point, and it looks like he is going to take a Nexus, which is nice. 3-gate Robo is obviously a pretty powerful timing attack, all-in kind of thing you can sort of hit as Protoss in PvP. It does not appear to be what Hyper Turtle is going for in this case. Oh, well, he is making a Robo, but he made an expansion, so it's not technically 3-gate Robo. I haven't lied to you yet. Warp Gate just about done for both players, adding on more and more stalkers and batteries and robos and all that good stuff. I think if Hyper Turtle does not make something of his production here, he's going to put himself in a little bit of a poor spot, as he's going to have a much later Natural Nexus. The Natural already done for the Archaic, who, granted, is not using it at all. He's trying to add on a Twilight Council and robotics facility with Immortals pumping out of it, which are all very expensive, and has not actually made many probes. I think the Archaic's choice to go for a Robo is a little questionable with a 1-gate expand, because you already don't have much scouting. And Observers, yes, are a scout, but they're kind of slow, and they're usually going to hit pretty late. He did, thankfully, go for a Sentry, but it was fairly late on into his production cycles, so he does not have a Hallucination out yet. So I think if Hyper Turtle was all-inning here, the Archaic would have a hard time to hold it. Luckily for him, that is not the case, and he is going into Charge now, adding on 2 more gateways to go up to 4. Hyper Turtle is now probing pretty hard. Will surpass the mining of the Archaic soon, as the Archaic a little bit slower on that probe production. So players are just about caught up at this point. Twilight Council is slightly later for Hyper Turtle, but he is adding on a Forge, so he'll be able to get +1 attack out for his units in that case. And obviously has the opportunity for cannons, which he is getting. The Archaic, obviously, as I said, known to potentially be a little bit aggressive at times. And so DTs can be considered aggressive, so you want to have cannons. So Cannon will be finishing up in the main base. He's adding on a shield battery in the Nat. Up quite a few workers at this point. 6 workers. Nothing to shake a stick at. Is that the phrase? I think that's the phrase. Anyways, something about sticks. Shaking them. More and more Immortals out for the Archaic. He does have Charge done now. Charge on the way for Hyper Turtle. Both players skipping Blink entirely. Third base going down for the Archaic. And based on the amount of money Hyper Turtle has at the moment, very well may be for him as well. I think the Archaic is definitely under probing quite a bit. Both players kind of are, but the Archaic is seen a little bit more dramatically. So only at 30 workers at 6 minutes into the game with a 1-gate expand is not a lot of workers. I think probably pretty worried about an all-in from his opponent. But with none coming and him preparing as hard as he did, definitely eats that lead that he established for himself earlier on in the game with that quick Nexus. Twilight Council on the way, well in advance for Hyper Turtle, and I like that. Archon's very important in the battle of Charge Lot against Charge Lot here. That splash damage providing a lot of value, especially if you have +1 and your opponent does not. So definitely shaping up to be a nice situation for Hyper Turtle here, as the Archaic playing a little bit passively, but also a little bit defensively against a player who's not attacking. Puts you in a little bit of an uncomfy spot. I don't think the Archaic is aware of the third base for Hyper Turtle at this moment. Phoenix Scout did not see it. Looks like he's going to try and maneuver over to where he can see it, maybe? Not quite. Well, maybe. He's looking for it. Anyways, Archons are starting to warp in for Hyper Turtle. The Archaic does get the Scout off, which is very nice for him. Just barely in time. And is going to move out to try and take down that third base. And actually does have a significant army lead here. Those High Templar have not morphed into Archons just yet. There is not a Warp Prism to allow for reinforcements for the Archaic, but Hyper Turtle is warping in Stalkers and High Templar rather than Zealots and High Templar, which is what you'd prefer to see here. And there is no shield battery at that third base. The Immortals far behind the army of the Archaic, but with a somewhat slow response out of Hyper Turtle, it doesn't look like it's going to end up mattering here. They will be able to catch up in time for the main fight. Trying to target down the Archon, but most of the Zealots have gone down anyways, so the Archon's job is pretty much complete. It's 2 Immortals to 2 Immortals. We'll have to see who can out-micro the other. And a battery overcharge does come down, fully heals up that 1 Immortal, and now the army's pretty much dead even. And with the Defender's advantage here, it should mean a good position for Hyper Turtle, although great Prism Micro out of the young Archaic. I don't think it's going to end up mattering, but man, is he trying to make it matter. We'll be able to make it out of there with no blink, at least. Should be able to. Oh, turns back a little bit. We'll make it away with one very low HP Immortal. But still a worker lead for Hyper Turtle, still an upgrade lead, and he does hold his third base without losing anything too significant. Just a couple Immortals going down. I think only one Immortal actually went down. The other one's still at almost full HP, which is very nice for him. And has the High Templar tech out to make those Archons. Definitely needs to be warping in more Zealots than he's morphing in Stalkers, but should be okay at the end of the day. Both players kind of going back into making Immortal Stalker a little bit here. Definitely good micro out of the Archaic in the previous fight, but that defender's advantage for Hyper Turtle pushing through. Both players now have out a Prism. A lot of Archons out for Hyper Turtle, though. And by a lot, I mean 2. I thought there were at least 3. I was wrong. Dark Shrine on the way for Hyper Turtle, but should be scouted by this Prism of the Archaic, which I believe has 2 Immortals in it? No. Nope, 4 Zealots, maybe. Something like that. Going into the main base of Hyper Turtle is the Archaic's units. And a big warpin of 6 Zealots in the main as well. There is a cannon there, which will provide a slight buffer of time, but the probes fighting now is going to be a massacre. 10 probes do go down. It should be 10 Zealots falling in return here. Oh my goodness, almost 20 probes. He continued to fight with the probes. A little bit unfortunate for him there. The Archaic trying to make it away with his Zealots. Should be able to warp out of there, and indeed he does. 4th base on the way for Hyper Turtle. Will need to continue probing, though, as he's lost a lot of stuff there. It feels like maybe going for too many things at once here is Hyper Turtle. As he's had better mining than his opponent, but his army is half the size without really taking too many bad trades. And definitely hurting a little bit there in the army supply is Hyper Turtle. We'll have to see if it ends up mattering. He is down 20 army supply at the moment, now down in workers as well. His 4th base is a good bit ahead of that of his opponents. And he does have +2, nearly finished up, whereas the Archaic does not even have +1. Robo Bay and Dark Shrine on the way for the Archaic. He's floating a lot of gas. Could make a lot of Archons if he would just utilize that Vespene, but oh well. Going in with a Warpin of Zealots into the 3rd base, but there's a lot of cannons there for the Archaic. He's trying to go around them, or for Hyper Turtle, I should say. Even hold positioning the Zealots. Quite cute there. Just battery overcharge for Hyper Turtle, though. And the Archons do manage to push back the Zealots. Army supply nearly evened up at this point. As the Archaic was spending so much time microing, he really hasn't been making much in the way of units, starting to float quite a bit of money, even though he has some 10, 12 gateways and 2 robo facilities. Dark Shrine now finished up for both players, neither having used it yet, and double Disruptor on the way for the Archaic. I think if Hyper Turtle just warps in a bunch more units and goes, maybe, but no, I mean, it's 90 army supply to 68, and the Archaic demonstrating an excellent expansion of his production here, going all the way up to those 12 gates, is able to spend massive amounts of cash in a very small amount of time. Perhaps stretching his economy a bit thin, though, as he's now adding on 2 more Stargates, doing kind of what Hyper Turtle did earlier on in the game, could end up hurting. Both players a little bit concerned about moving out, I think. Fairly even in supply as far as the workers go, but the army supply, a decent advantage for Hyper Turtle at this, or for the Archaic at this point. Hyper Turtle does have out a lot of Archons, 6 to the 2 of the Archaic, but those Disruptors are going to be what really matters in these fights. It's really going to come down to those hits, I think. As the upgrades are going to be significantly in the advantage of Hyper Turtle, but Disruptors don't really care about upgrades very much at all. In fact, I don't think armor affects their balls at all. So we'll see. DTs are coming in. There's lots of cannons there. Oh, I'm sorry. Those are Hyper Turtle's DTs. Those definitely... Come on, guys. Back me up here. Those look like they were going for some probes. All right, come on. Come on. We can all agree. Anyways, I don't think there's actually detection with this army, funnily enough. But it's about to catch the army of Hyper Turtle completely for free. Well, half the army was split off there, but the Archaic not quite sure of that. Oh my gosh, there's about to be a lot of big balls exploding all over the army of Hyper Turtle. They continue to go out, clean up a bunch of the Archons. There are still Archons at the front, and the Disruptors are completely spent. +2 upgrades, and the DTs with no detection, ravaging the army of the Archaic. 2 of the Disruptors have gone down, 2 others very low at this point. But there is detection here for the DTs now, so they do get cleaned up. This 4th base starting to take some major damage. Hyper Turtle continuing to warp in behind. Disruptors do get sniped. Excellent target fire out of the Stalkers of Hyper Turtle as he continues to push forward with his army. Dealing a lot of probe damage and continuing to warp in and fight, trying to target down the pylon, but unfortunately there's another pylon. Who could have predicted this? Does target the battery now, but I think that will allow the Archaic to clean up here. I think maybe just taking the 4th and then leaving would have been the best option there for Hyper Turtle, but unfortunately winds up trading his entire army and I think potentially his life for it, as it is now 79 supply to 136. I have to say this because clearly you cannot read the big numbers at the bottom of the screen. And a big 9 Zealot warp in the main base for the Archaic, starting to rip and tear at all the economy and production of Hyper Turtle. He's warping in DTs to try to defend, but they're just standing there for some reason. Army now coming in the front. I think even with the battery overcharge, there may not be enough to defend there. Big Artosis pylon dropping the new album. All right. Battery overcharge does go down, but it's on the forward battery, so it falls almost instantly in the Archaic. I think we'll be able to clean up a slight overextension on that fight out of Hyper Turtle. It was such a good fight until he tried to go into that 3rd base and fight into a bunch of Zealots with just Stalkers and like 1 Archon. Not to mention battery overcharge, which was able to get almost its full value out, which is a lot. Its full value is a lot. That's a lot of value. It's a lot of damage. More and more DTs coming in, but the Observer is nearly here for the Archaic. I think it may not end up mattering. So much damage was done. This is the game of overextensions, it looks like, ladies and gentlemen, as the Archaic was like, it'll be here soon. I've done that. I've definitely done that. You know, you see there's DTs attacking your army, you're like, I'll just bring the servers here from the other side of the map. And like 2 minutes later, you're like, I feel like that should have been here by now. What's the big deal here? What's going on? And then your entire army's dead, and then the Overseer rocks up right then and is like, hey guys, what's up? Ahoy. Anyways, DTs killing a lot of probes here as there's still no detection. The Archaic, no! Oh, tries to disruptor them. But Hyper Turtle is careful. I think if he kills this base and then retreats, he'll be in a really good spot. Could definitely I mean, there's just so many DTs. Imagine if there's DT Blink here. Goodness gracious. Get out! Run! Oh man, the Archaic not fighting all together. All together now! DTs are just ripping through everything. This is disgusting. This is horrifying. I feel bad for the Archaic here. This is inhumane. This is terrible. There's so much destruction from DTs. Holy cow. I wish we could see exactly how much just the DTs killed, but unfortunately I don't think that's an option. Nonetheless, 5th base coming down for Hyper Turtle, who's now morphing those 10 DTs into 5 Archons, a strong bank of force. And the Archaic on 3 bases, one of which is fully mined out, the second nearly mined out, well over halfway mined out at this point. And that 3rd base is pretty good on resources, but 1 base, man cannot live on 1 base alone, I believe someone once said. Continue to warp in more and more High Templar and Zealots. I think that's the way to go here. Just mass Archon charge lot. Let's be honest, you're not dodging those disruptibles anyway. So may as well make units that either 1, can't really be targeted by the disruptors because you'll hit your own units with the Zealots, or 2, are big chunky boys like Archons. So they can take more than 1 disruptor hit. And they take up a lot of space. So you can't hit too many of them with just a disruptor. Anyways. Void Ray Disruptor on the way. Speaking of, crazy. It's almost like I knew they were making those. 2-2 nearly done for Hyper Turtle. That +2 on the Zealots will be decently helpful in terms of the armor. And on the Archons, it won't matter much at all because they only have 10 HP. Hardy har har. The Archaic somehow building himself a massive army supply lead despite having way less economy yet again. I feel like maybe Hyper Turtle has not been mining efficiently on most of his bases or something like that, or like most of them mined out and have like 16 out of 8 or something. I don't know. I feel like that must be the case for Hyper Turtle to be down 40 army supply after he was up in supply a minute ago. Because he's been making things. I guess Hyper Turtle makes a lot of cannons and batteries, which do cost money. So maybe it's that. So in that case, Hyper Turtle needs to play a little bit more defensively, in theory. We'll see if he does that. Does have a lot of Archons out, a good amount of Zealots, started to make his own Stargates. I'm not sure if he's fully aware of the big O Void Ray count that's coming out here. He's starting to warp in for the Archaic as well, actually. Maybe going to make some Archons out of those, as he does have 3 already at the moment, which will be helpful against those charge lots. Looks like Hyper Turtle is going to Hyper Turtle. The Archaic starts to pull those probes and is like, I have no base to mine from with these probes. What am I doing with my life? Is taking a new 4th base, and Hyper Turtle is going for the classic run-by with nothing else going on in the game. Okay, never mind. All right, they're just checking for bases. That's good. I was going to say, don't send those into the net. I think the Archaic may be able to react to those in time. I don't know. Don't quote me on that, but there's a possibility. Nonetheless, Hyper Turtle's economy is looking to be in a better and better spot throughout this game. He's up to 75 workers. He is catching up in that army supply. He will reach max before his opponent is adding on a fleet bacon as well. I think the army composition for the Archaic is technically better. Just Charge Lot Archon. I'm not sure how to feel about that. Especially against the Disruptors. I make memes about how big and chunky Archons are, but Disruptors kind of rip Archons into pieces a little bit. Little itty-bitty pieces. A big surround would be good, and Hyper Turtle is going to find the base right as our Archaic's moving out, which will force the Archaic to come back, nicely enough. If he loses all these Zealots for it, that won't be good. I think he sees the army. No! Run! Run! There's like 4 patches here. It's not even much mining anyways. Okay, does recall some Zealots, starting down probes with others. Does force a probe pull, so not the worst. And does have a clear picture of his opponent's army now. Is going for a mothership and does have a lot of static defense on all his bases. A new warp in the main base of Hyper Turtle from the Archaic with that warp prism. The thorn in Hyper Turtle's side this entire time. The Archaic can probably kill this base, but I don't think it matters because Hyper Turtle has 2 other fresh bases. Fresh basils. So it's not going to matter too much if you do kill these. Okay. The Archaic does clear out 2 of the cannons. I like that move. Very cute. Feel free to screenshot. And now going to hit another cannon, some probes. I feel like you should maybe save the Disruptor Balls for the army, but they may be able to replenish in time, so it might not matter. That is so many Archons. That is 17 plus 3 Archons. Or no, I'm sorry, they're plus 2. They're almost plus 3. Uh-oh, here comes the balls! Balls! No! Oh my gosh. And just like that, you're down to 9 Archons. That's not very many. Or at least not as many as 17 was. I'm not sure who's winning this fight. I think it's the Archaic for sure, though. Hyper Turtle is coming in with Stalkers, but they're actually not great against Void Rays if the Void Rays overcharge. The Archons are protecting the front, but now the overcharged Void Rays are slaughtering everything. Yeah, fighting down that choke with 17 Archons was possibly the worst choke in this map to fight in with Archons. And there's a lot of chokes in this map. I mean, oh hey, he does manage to snipe one of the things, so that's nice. Oh, he doesn't have detection again, so he has to target down the mothership, which means a lot of shots will be able to go off. There's no more battery overcharge, but I think Hyper Turtle may be able to hold here. Oh, blink away! Oh, he blinked into the other Disruptor Ball. No! Ah! Okay. I think Hyper Turtle will be able to survive here with 51 workers remaining, which is a good amount of economy. As the Archaic is almost fully mined out in his 3rd base even at this point, which means he will only have 1 mining base to the 2 of Hyper Turtle. Has managed to clean up 2 more of the disruptors, and the Archaic is just making disruptors. He needs to make some like zealots or something like that, I think. Hyper Turtle just needs to sit back. I don't think he knows this, but he just needs to sit back. He has so much static defense. He's got way more mining. It's hard to know in a situation like this exactly what your opponent's got, but yeah, just chill, you know, just chill. And make units. I'd say making units is probably good. You're floating a lot of resources. There we go. 3 High Templar and 3 Stalkers and some Zealots. That's good. Okay. Make those bad boys into Archons. Is he mining gas off of his other bases? I think he just started. Okay, good. Yeah, you do need gas mining, unfortunately. Kind of lame. Yeah, 3-2 now. Soon to be 3-3 against 0-0. The Archaic channeling a little bit of the classic Dark Menace moves, as we call them around here. And once again, there's no detection with this army, so DTs might just clean up this whole shebang yet again. That would be a little unfortunate were it to become the case. We'll see. Oh my gosh, don't blow up your own zealots. Overcharge the batteries. Hyper Turtle really wants to kill those disruptors. I think he has enough to hold here now. A great fight out of him, especially with battery overcharge. Yeah, we'll be able to hold this. We should even be able to target down the disruptor if it tries to come in. Does get another Void Ray, and I think we actually are seeing Hyper Turtle take a convincing lead in this game, now up in army as well as that economy. Feels like it's been decades since Hyper Turtle was up in army against the Archaic, who is almost purely out of mining. He's got 1 base left, and he's barely got enough money to take another. So he is going to take another, but it's going to be kind of exposed if Hyper Turtle does decide to move out onto the map. And move out onto the map he is indeed doing. So one of those awkward shift-click rallies we all do at times. Your army's like, go to this point on the map, do the conga, and then go to where I told you to go. More DTs warping in now for Hyper Turtle. As the base of the Archaic is found, there's no shield batteries here. The Zealots are ripping through some of the probes. As long as he just kills his base and pulls back, this will be great for Hyper Turtle. But if we've learned anything about these players, it's that they don't know the meaning of the word pull back. They don't even know that it's 2 words with the hyphen in between. 10 workers do go down, and one of the only fresh mining base. He's working on getting another one, but the only fresh mining base of the Archaic goes down, which means he's long distance mining and has 1 mineral patch, and that's it. So pretty good for Hyper Turtle. He's now doubling the supply of his opponent. Feeling good about that, I'd have to imagine, as that's sort of the goal. You know, to be up in supply and then kill them. I guess that's the other goal. Be up in supply and kill your opponent. I guess you can kind of do the second one without doing the first one. Be down in supply and still kill your opponent. That's like a fun little thing that can happen. Anyways, the army is going into the only remaining mining base of the Archaic and targeting it down. Does decide, you know what, I guess I will kill your units first. Oh, an excellent last second lift on the disruptor, and GG is called. Hot diddly dang. That was insanity. At all times, impossible to call who would win that game. Right up to the very end. So we obviously see a very happy Hyper Turtle there. As, I mean, the army value graphs are incredible. Just peaks and valleys and peaks and valleys and peaks and valleys and peaks and valleys throughout that whole game. Crazy back and forth. But eventually winning out in the economy did Hyper Turtle, and with just the massive amounts of cannons and batteries was able to hold, survive, and win. So very well done.
Right? The DTs and the lack of detection that turned the tide several times over, besides the overextension, like you said, right?
Yeah, it was funny how 2 different kinds of cloak won that game for Hyper Turtle. First, it was the DTs. If the Archaic had detection with him that first time around, with the DTs cleaned him up and pushed him back, the game would have been 100% over. And then even the mothership, I think the Archaic would have won that fight if he didn't have to target down the mothership before he could fight the rest of the army. So yeah, just lack of detection really was the deciding factor there for the Archaic. Looking really strong though, so I think definitely still has a very good chance of winning, obviously, in the rest of the series. So nothing to feel too bad about, but crazy game for sure.
Yeah, it was just kind of funny where he had several observers, they died, and then he just kept fighting without detection, right? So, just something you don't notice until it's too late. You lost too many.
Yep, for sure. And I think a couple of his observers were in like the observation mode, so they were stationary. So a lot of times you forget that.
I see. Yeah, that's the anti F2 move.
Right, yeah, but then sometimes you're like, dang it, what did F2?
Yeah,
I've defeated myself.
exactly.
But anyways, it'll be 2,000 atmospheres for our next map. Another pretty big, pretty macro focused map, and a crazy game one. Crazy game one for sure. Hopefully, we have more excitement just like that in the rest of the series.
Yep. All right, we got Archaic's camera back on, so that's good.
Oh, hey, yeah.
Yeah, his came off a little bit, so the players.
Hyper Turtle's excitement was too large for the box we'd put him in, so he had to shove the Archaic out of the way. Yep. We've got him back now. So yeah, I'd say nothing to feel too bad about. You know, we all lose that sometimes. You just don't have detection, and then by the time you realize it's a little too late. So definitely
DTs,
nothing to feel
man.
too poor about. That's very true. It's just it's the power of DTs.
If any unit has changed the game many times over, it's the DT.
Absolutely. Yeah, nothing quite has the same just flip a game on its head potential. But nonetheless, we are counting down. It's going to be 2,000 atmospheres LE for our second game of this series. Here we go.
You are watching FSL Season 5.
Alrighty. In the upper right-hand side of the map, we have our yellow Protoss player. He is
Hyper Turtle.
And his opponent, he's in the bottom left. He's down 0-1. He is
The Archaic.
Will he be able to make the comeback happen? I gotta say, I think the Archaic is overall better at the macro of PvP. He managed to just like accelerate his supply much faster than Hyper Turtles at several points where he was slightly down in supply. There's just a few critical positioning and decision-making mistakes that wound up costing him that game. So we'll have to see if he manages to clean those up. Hyper Turtle, obviously, no slouch. It wasn't significantly better at macro or anything like that. It was just slight edges that the Archaic was able to build, and Hyper Turtle was able to outposition, outsmart, outthink on a few different occasions to establish the lead back for himself. Now, gas steal out of the Archaic. Yet again, gas steals. They're one of those things where it's like, I know this isn't good for my opponent, but I don't know how to make it not good for my opponent. Zerg is pretty easy because you don't take your second gas in your main base until like 6 minutes anyways. But if I'm ever Protoss or Terran in team games and I get gas blocked, I'm like, I know this puts me ahead somehow. I just don't know how. So I'm not sure what to do with this. But anyways, we do have a high ground wall off from the Archaic, as Hyper Turtle looks like it did pylon block him. Has scouted that. May want to make a zealot just to deny that as quickly as possible. And has forgotten his second pylon again. So the Archaic did say he hadn't practiced as much recently, and perhaps that's showing a little bit. As he's about to find out he's supply blocked now. And there we go. Pylon is going down. Stalker ain't going to be coming out anytime soon, and a much faster expansion out of Hyper Turtle, who's able to skip his first two units. I'm not sure if he's doing that because he knows that his opponent completely forgot his second pylon. I doubt you know that. I think if you'd seen that, you would be worried about your opponent, proxying you. But instead, it was just a slight slip of the mind, as they say. So in this case, a much, much faster Nexus out of Hyper Turtle. He's able to get that down, and the Archaic is not able to get his own down because of the pylon block on the other side of the map. Hyper Turtle obviously is gas blocked, but could just take the two gases in his natural and then start mining those as soon as his base finishes up, which would be right around the time those gases finished up. And that would catch him back up in the gas he's supposed to have. And the gas advantage is going to be kind of hard to leverage as the Archaic, as you only built one gateway. He is building two more and a Stargate now, so it looks like he is going to look to be aggressive here. But I think shield batteries and stalkers may be all that's needed to kind of hold out here, as he is able to make lots of them. He's already got 2 stalkers out, making 2 more. They don't cost a whole lot of gas. And he's getting that warp gate as well. Natural base is on the way for the Archaic. Could be starting up a Void Ray or an Oracle. Looking to see which that may be here in the near future. Or maybe not. As warp gate is finishing up for the Archaic. He chrono boosted that out hard. Unfortunately, is supply blocked again. But I imagine that'll be fixed relatively soon. Battery is going down in the natural base for Hyper Turtle, who is just getting a massive lead based almost entirely out of the supply blocks his opponent is putting himself into, which is a little unfortunate for the Archaic, obviously, but a little serendipitous if you're a Hyper Turtle. Void Ray is now on the way out for the Archaic. He's going to go double Stargate, single Stargate on the way for Hyper Turtle. As the Oracle, or the Hallucination Scout, I should say, comes in for the Archaic. Should be able to see the 3 gateways and the Stargate pretty easily here. We'll know exactly what's going on for his opponent. Nice scout indeed. First Void Ray now out. Natural base only just now finishing up, so big mining income advantage over the last few minutes for our boy in the upper right, who's up 500 minerals a minute currently. Even on gas mining, but those extra minerals are pretty nice for probes and pylons and shield batteries and gases to get gas. So, you know, pretty nice overall. Gas mining spiking up for Hyper Turtle, who did take his natural gases slightly quicker because of the delay in his main base, and is now building an Oracle. The Archaic, it seems, is kind of, I don't know, floundering a little bit for a strategy. He built 2 Stargates, but now he's building a Robo and an extra gateway, and he's not really producing off of the 2 Stargates. He's only got 1 or 2 Void Rays out, and he's only making 1 more. I mean, this is only his 2nd Void Ray, and he's already got 2 Stargates out. And now an Oracle coming into his main base might throw him off his game even a little bit more than before. As, Hyper Turtle starting to kill probes. 5 and 6. It looks like it's going to be about 9 to 10 in total. And may even be able to get out of there. Does get out of there with the Oracle. With 9 kills to its name. Puts Hyper Turtle in yet again a pretty commanding lead supply-wise. 15 supply, has a lot of stalkers out. Would really like to see Blink with the amount of stalkers that we've got. Don't think the Oracle was able to scout the Stargates for his opponent. So may not be quite aware that that happened. And indeed, it looks like he did not see that. So a little unfortunate there, but the Archaic is not leaning as hard into those Stargates as I'd perhaps like to see. Once again, he's only made 3 Void Rays. He could have like 7 or 8 at this point, I think. Does manage to find the other Oracle. Well, by the other Oracle, I mean the exact same Oracle, and is getting a 3rd base out, which is nice. We'll be able to surpass in the mining here soon. Hyper Turtle is looking to move out, though, it looks like. So not a lot of stalkers. They are blinkless, and it's going to be against Void Rays, but the Void Rays did overcharge to kill the Oracle. I don't think that'll end up mattering. He should be off cooldown by the time that rolls around. And there's even 2. This is the thing: is it's a 2 Stargate player who's got 1 more Void Ray than the 1 Stargate player. It's 7 minutes into the game. Hyper Turtle's got 2 Void Rays with him, his army, and a whole lot of stalkers. I think this is just going to be game. Honestly, this is very strange. Oh well, I mean, Hyper Turtle's just like, I'm just going to kill your 3rd, I guess. Yeah, Hyper Turtle just cleans up the 3rd. We'll be able to kill a lot of probes as well, potentially. Now going for the kill move, I think a little bit late into the game. Should have just fought that army, honestly. I mean, would have won the fight there, but now there's battery overcharge. Now there's 5 Void Rays, so the Archaic is starting to utilize those Stargates a little bit more, but I think definitely just struggling a little bit to find exactly what he wants to go for in this game, and yet another supply block. So painful because of that lost 3rd. Does indeed end up getting supply blocked. +1 now on the way for Hyper Turtle. Would like to see a Twilight Council in the near future for that blink. For those stalkers would help a lot. The Void Ray's looking to shark around, maybe catch the third as it's being built, but it is not being built. The Archaic scared to kind of move out with his whole army, so Hyper Turtle will be able to clean up that. Ooh, that pylon! Oh, get out of there! Okay, we'll lose a Void Ray. Oh no. Void Ray does make it away, quite unfortunately. Hyper Turtle continuing to make more Void Rays and adding on his own second Stargate. Maybe you should even make a third if you want to catch up on the Void Ray count. +1 air is starting up for the Archaic. And is starting to double pump those Void Rays, so I like that. I think if he just continues doing that and Hyper Turtle tries to get into Void Rays of his own, it's going to be hard to catch up if your opponent is already ahead on Void Rays and is consistently making them. But that's what we need to see. We need to see consistent making. Okay, we have a hallucinated Colossus and a hallucinated Void Ray going out on the map to scout. Oh no, the hallucinated Colossus is going to get found by the Void Rays. No! So Colossus does die, but the hallucinated Void Ray will get off the free scout on what Hyper Turtle's going for, which is a Fleet Bacon and +1 air of his own, and Blink. The Archaic is starting to catch up in supply. Definitely a little bit down in this game, but not out. Has been probing, whereas Hyper Turtle has not. Hyper Turtle is more prone to cannoning a lot, which does often put him down in supply. But he has been pretty good about his upgrades. Already has +1 for his ground, is getting +1 for his air, and should be able to start +2 for his ground soon, should he so desire. And a Darkshine now coming down as well. Now I'm going to have to start ragging on Hyper Turtle as he's also made a second Stargate and hasn't used it at all yet. Use your buildings. If you're going to make the building, use it. All right, Fluxbane's on the way. And the 2 Stargates, now he's looking at them. Oh, he's like, Tempest? No. Carriers? Carriers. All right, so we're going to see Carriers, but it's only 46 probes. I think I might have liked to see Void Rays more here, but with the Blink Stalker count underneath, it may end up being all right for him. The economy lead is definitely getting there for the Archaic, who's continuing to expand, taking a 4th base now as well. Hyper Turtle very slow to add on more and more probes, unfortunately. Wanting to get carrier production going. Does have Flux Veins nearly done. Blink finishing up as well. And both players are going for +1 armor on the air. So we will have a pretty significant set of upgrade advantages for Hyper Turtle, but definitely needs to start getting economy built up. Only 50 probes to the 67 of the Archaic. Big army supply advantage for sure. And maybe if you just max out on 50 probes, it won't end up mattering if your opponent has an economy advantage that significant, but Carriers now on the way for both players. Hyper Turtle looking to take a 4th base as well. And looking to add on Disruptors now maybe for the Archaic. That'll be very good against those Blink Stalkers potentially. He is adding on a Robo Bay and going up to 3 robotics facilities. Getting Flux Veins of his own. 4th base is on the way for Hyper Turtle, who is slowly starting to fully saturate his 3rd base, almost just because his main base is running out of mineral patches. But whatever works. Does have out a couple carriers, but not producing any more at the moment because he's low on money, but high on a dream. 3 carriers on the way at a time for the Archaic. Starting to add on more now is Hyper Turtle. He's also starting to add on that 4th base and just make it. Does he only have like one? Maybe he only has one Nexus hotkeyed. I've only ever seen him make 1 probe at a time for the last like 3 minutes. Maybe he thinks he has more than 1 Nexus hotkeyed for his probes, and he just doesn't. Because see, they're even queued up. Which Nexus is this? Is this his 3rd Nexus? Yeah, he's got like 4 probes queued on his 3rd Nexus, but that's the only Nexus he's making probes out of. Why not just make those 4 probes out of your 4 Nexi, you know? I know Hyper Turtle knows that, so I think maybe he just doesn't have a hotkeyed. I don't know. It's weird. Okay, there we go. Now 4 firing up. So there we go. That could have been the case. That might have been what was going on. I'm not sure. It's possible. It would be quite unfortunate if that were the case. If that's the only reason he's down in economy like this, that would really suck. But anyways, +2 air attack on the way for both players. +1 shields on the way for Hyper Turtle. It is currently 4 carriers to 3. So they're actually staying pretty even in the carrier counts with each other. Hyper Turtle still does have an army supply advantage, but disruptors being added in onto the ground. It's going to be really hard to worry about an air army as well as dodging disruptors with your stalkers on the ground. DT is now being warped in for Hyper Turtle, and the Archaic is taking the rich gas base on this map. Pretty cool. I think it's rich gas. Maybe it's just normal gas and it's just a tiny base. I can never remember. It's a rich gas, right? I think it's a rich gas. Yeah, it's got like purple gas. Yeah, so rich gas obviously just means it harvests twice as much per load. So it's worth 2 gases for only 3 probes, which is nice. So that'll be definitely helpful in PvP, especially. So the Archaic, they're both maxed out. Hyper Turtle has a bigger army, but the Archaic has a massive bank. And his gas count, 1,500 gas a minute, is just going to be massive here for him. Should help him out quite a bit. DTs are found by the army of the Archaic, and Hyper Turtle now knows that his opponent is coming for him, I think. So we'll have to see. This big fight could decide the whole game right here. All right, they're going in, they're fighting. Disruptor balls come a little bit short. They actually don't hit the army of Hyper Turtle much. The carrier is coming in a little bit late and not overcharging his Hyper Turtle. He's walking his carriers right through the army of his opponent. Oh no, that might be all she wrote. That's so unfortunate. Okay, good target fire. The RDT's making quick work of the stalkers of the Archaic on the ground as well. Link! Oh no! Okay, it's a zero-sum game, I think, pretty much. Everybody lost a lot. Everybody lost a whole lot there. Don't know that anyone really came out ahead there. In theory, the Archaic did because he does have a bank, so it'll be easier for him to remake that army than it will be for Hyper Turtle. As he is on 5, now 6 soon-to-be bases. Hyper Turtle looking for some damage, but I don't think you're going to be able to find it here. Okay, able to remake his army very quickly. And I think that really came down to, well, for one, obviously, Hyper Turtle flying his like 6 carriers directly into the middle of his opponent's army without A moving because they were on the opposite side of the army from his main army. It was very unfortunate. But the disruptors not hitting because they were fired just a little bit prematurely. It was very unfortunate for the Archaic. However, he is up pretty significantly in supply now. Still up in economy as well. The upgrades are still in the advantage of Hyper Turtle. And he's making carriers where his opponent is making Void Rays. I don't know who that's better for, but I think maybe the carrier player in the long term. And unfortunately, these DTs are targeting pylons instead of probes. They are now going to look for the probes, but they may even be able to just kill this base. Is there detection for the army? I think there's not detection, is there? Okay, they're there. They're on their way. Huff, 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 huff. No, kill the base. Kill the base. Oh, no. Oh. I think he thinks that the detection is going to be there too soon, but it's not. He will be able to make it away, which is nice, I suppose. Okay. DTs do get caught. Don't kill that base, but there's nothing mining from it at the moment, so sort of accomplish their goal in a way. Did manage to kill a few probes as well, so he's not too far down in economy now at this point. +3 going to be finishing up for both players pretty soon for their air armies. And the Archaic has 11 Void Rays to the 2 Void Rays, 5 carriers of Hyper Turtle, who is making 1 more carrier, but should add on more soon, I think. Hyper Turtle really needs to not move out until max with the army he's going for. You need to be maxed out on carriers for them to really be effective. Void Rays continuing to pump out for the Archaic 5 at a time. Still has a big mineral bank, not so big of a gas bank. And I will say, starting to add on cannons and batteries like the Hyper Turtle does at this point in the game is definitely good. I feel like Hyper Turtle, it's a good habit, but sometimes he overdoes it and doesn't have money to make actual units. But if you're floating 8,000 minerals and you're getting attacked by DTs, just make a bunch of cannons. What else are you going to do with those? Make zealots? I know you're not going to do that. You know you're not going to do that. And hey, the Archaic does it. This has been the second time where I've said something and the player like immediately does what I said. Stream sniping from both players. Because it's been each player. I think it's just pure coincidence, but kind of funny. Anyways, 3 more carriers on the way for the Archaic now. 1 more on the way for Hyper Turtle, who's low on gas. Does have 6. That'll be 7, plus a Mama ship. And he's getting +3 armor for his carrier, so he's going to have a decent upgrade advantage here, especially with those +2 shields finishing up. Maybe able to start +3 shields in the near future as well. Both players are approaching a max out, so we're probably going to see another fight in the near future. And I will say for the Archaic's composition, I feel like you got to go big or go home. Either make all Void Rays or all carriers. Maybe I'm wrong. Or at least make it more even if you're going to make it even. Because, like, if you're going to make carriers, you need to have, like, at least, like, 5 or 7, I think, for them to really start to have value or add value to your army. A Zealot run by Hyper Turtle is decent, but he still doesn't have charge, so not going to help the most. But a cool idea, a good idea anyways, nonetheless, for sure. Hyper Turtle being caught while he's out on the map, and the carrier, no! The carrier A-moved, and it was like, I think I'll attack the hallucination. I think that's an important thing to do here. And so he died. That's what you get, kids. If you have hallucinations, you're probably going to die. I don't make the rules. Oh no, the carrier is being found while there's no detection, which means the carriers of Hyper Turtle will be able to get all their interceptors out in advance of this fight, which is very nice for them. Blink array! Okay. Good target fire out of the Archaic, and Void Rays win. I think if the poor Stalkers had blinked out of the way of any of those Disruptor Balls, that fight might have gone a lot better for Hyper Turtle, but unfortunately they did not, and so it went pretty poorly. He's trying to make Phoenix because he sees the mass Void Ray. That's actually a pretty decent idea here. Why are you still going? Run. Run. You have no overcharge, and he has shield batteries. Okay, good. He's running. He's starting to run. The Archaic is not about to be caught without detection, by the way, with those, 7 observers. Very based indeed. All those cannons of Hyper Turtle should be able to keep him alive here, especially with those Stalkers and Void Rays. Those kind of help as well. Ah, man, he started to make Phoenix, but now he's going back into carriers. I think Phoenix are the way to go here. Oh, he was making the Phoenix to go against the Disruptors, not to go against the Void Rays. I guess that works as well. Economies have evened out, but the Archaic has a much bigger bank because he had a bigger economy for a long time. He did mine out that rich gas, though, and Hyper Turtle's still mining from it, so that does help him. The economy, pretty even. It's just that bank that may end up mattering. And the Archaic finds the main base completely undefended. Oh no, 2 free carriers. Yum yum, my favorite. We'll be able to depower pretty much all the Stargates, and there's only 2 Phoenix out. Like I said, I think if he just rushed Phoenix like he was doing off of both or all 3 Stargates, that would have been pretty good for him. Maybe able to recall out of here. Maybe be able to just run, yeah, because once you get into the airspace, there's not enough air units for Hyper Turtle to be able to chase much. Except that carrier. Hyper Turtle's carriers are the most brave folks in the world, I've got to say. Like, every other one of his units is like, no, we'll stay back, it's okay. And his carriers are like, I'm going for it. There's about to be some dead Void Rays in this here town. He is bleeding Void Rays, but again, he has the bank for it. Although the gas banks are pretty even for both players, and that's what matters the most here in PvP. In PvP land. The land of the brave, I would say. I'm trying to hop on top of that carrier, but the carrier is not actually the highest DPS unit here for you to focus down, I'd say, for the Archaic. Run, Hyper Turtle! No! Okay. Battery overcharge does come in, but there's disruptors here, and they don't care much about battery overcharge. They don't really give a darn. And I think we're going to see a tied series here, for sure. It's 180 supply to only 90. And yeah, Hyper Turtle, carriers are cool, carriers are great, but you gotta have a lot of them, especially in PvP where Void Rays exist. And we're seeing that really come to fruition here as, boom, okay. Does manage to dodge that Disruptor Ball quite nicely. Not so much on the second one though. Ouchie, ouchie, ouchie. Hyper Turtle's fighting for his life. He does have a big economy, but so does the Archaic. And the Archaic has Oprah money. The Archaic now just targeting pylons. He's not even fighting the army of Hyper Turtle, interestingly enough. I think we're going to see a GG here soon. As all the Stargates already powered, and GG is called. Another pretty close game there. Hyper Turtle not able to close it out 2-0, unfortunately. Really needs to win this series to have a chance to make it into the playoffs. So a little unfortunate for him there, for sure. That's going to be Glittering Ashes to close us out, which is a funky little map. See some weirdness happen on there from time to time, so we'll see exactly what the players go for there. But yeah, very well done out of the Archaic. He gets up a big economy. I do have to wonder if Hyper Turtle was only making one probe at a time, because that Nexus was just the only one that got hotkeyed somehow, or like he accidentally overrode his hotkeys. I definitely overwrite my hotkeys from time to time. And yeah, I mean, I just wish we could have seen all of the Archaic's observers get sniped and lose to DTs again. So then in his next series, he just has like more observers than he has any other unit. He's on like 20 probes, 70 observers, you know, something like that. It'd be pretty neat. But this doesn't mean we get a game 3, which I'm glad to see. A very nice series thus far out of both players. And we're going to head into Glittering Ashes. It's going to be our final game of our first series of the night. Holy cow. Ugh. A long one indeed. A long, long series indeed. We're just checking to make sure the players are ready, and then we can hit start. And yeah, so Glittering Ashes is an interesting map. It's got a lot of high grounds for your third and your fourth and things like that to be able to defend. So it's a pretty good defensive map. So what the players opt to go for here is we are hopping into game.
You are watching FSL Season 5.
All right, in the lower left-hand side, it is
Hyper Turtle.
And tying up the series, the Purple Protoss, he is
The Archaic.
The Hyper Turtle is doing a fake Proxy Rex, but with Protoss. Holy cannoli is all I have to say about that one. He's dropping the pylon in the back of his natural, so his opponent will think he's proxy gating him. We'll see if the Archaic takes the bait, so to speak. And Hyper Turtle just walked out from the direction that his gateway is. That might throw a wrench in things. I mean, with the double gas, surely you know that it's something completely normal, right? What proxy build goes for double gas that early? But, you know. Oh, no. Please. Please. Okay. no! He knows. I think he's been alerted to the situation. That's unfortunate. Okay, so the Archaic now knows about Hyper Turtle's stratagems. Hyper Turtle is adding on a second gateway in the main base, and then a Cyber Core. And the Archaic adding on a second gateway of his own. So I think this favors the Archaic at least a little bit. Hyper Turtle kind of down in probes a little bit. I'm not sure if he's going to go for a fast expand. Or what here? Robo on the... Oh, is it a proxy robo? It's a proxy robo on the way from the Archaic. Oh, no. I think the last game might be a short one. I'm just gonna say it. I'm gonna speak my mind. Do you see the spray come down for Hyper Turtle? A very epic spray indeed. As a third gateway drops for the Archaic, his Robo is nearly finished. He's heading on a Twilight and a fourth gateway. This is like when you you go to get your food at the buffet and you stack it up like 6 feet high, and then it occurs to you that you might not be able to eat all that. I think that's what the Archaic is doing. It's slightly optimistic to think you'll be able to produce off of a Robo, 4 gateways, and research upgrades from a Twilight off of 1 base. I personally find that optimistic. I don't think that's going to work. But I think he may be able to win anyways, just because his opponent unfortunately went for a strategy that got scouted and is pretty vulnerable to this build and has not made a shield battery. And is making an Oracle. It's not the greatest fighting unit against Stalkers, obviously. Oh, and he's making Blink. Okay. I think the Archaic is being more fancy than needed, but it may get the job done anyways. As we see several Stalkers coming out. He's making a forward pylon, which does barely not get scouted, I think, by that Oracle. And adding on more and more shield batteries now. I think probably assuming his opponent's going to go for an all-in, but the shield batteries, I think, are a day late and $1 short. And the Archaic is counter-battering. Already has an Immortal out against just Stalkers, basically. There is technically an Oracle, but I don't think the Oracle is going to end up coming into play here. An unfortunate loss, I'd say, for Hyper Turtle, who has no units left. Oh man, depower the Warp Gate. Nope, too late. Just going to go for the Throat here, is the Archaic, and I think the Throat he is going to find. As he'll be able to depower one of the gateways and the Stargate, and has 6 Stalkers and an Immortal against 1 Oracle. So definitely an unfortunate little bit of scouting there for Hyper Turtle out of the Archaic. And will end up costing him the game, but a good, valiant effort from Hyper Turtle. GG's called.
The Archaic.
Well, Seth, what do you have to say about that one?
Well, good games all around. We went from 2 long macro games to a quick 5-minute, actually 5:01, third game. But yeah, I mean, I was at the edge of my seat in that entire match. What did you think, Itzy?
Yeah, a wild series. I'd say game 1, one of the most back and forth games I've seen in a while. Especially, I'd probably say the most back and forth game in the Code A, I want to say. I haven't seen all of them, but I've seen a good number, and that was about as crazy as it gets.
When you think one person is about to win, and then the pendulum just swings the other way every time. So, but
every time.
So, but those good set of games there for both Hyper Turtle and the Archaic, and good job, the Archaic, and good games, Hyper Turtle. But let's start with Hyper Turtle here. So, game number 1, those DTs just wrecked his army, and were you aware that he was just not making enough observers?
I was willing to make a wager on it, you know. I mean, losing a few DTs isn't too bad, so I find that in a lot of big matches, people tend to skimp a little bit on observers. I noticed that in the second game, he had what looked like maybe 7 observers following his void rays.
Yeah, he went overboard on the observers in the second game, so he said he's not gonna lose to any more DTs, but it still did a lot of that damage in the second game. But so second game, what was the game plan there? So just macro up, and same thing as game. Game number 2, macro up just similarly as how game 1 went.
In game 2, I thought I was further ahead economically, because I definitely was in the first game. So yeah, I was just getting ready to be able to replenish my troops whenever possible.
Gotcha. But this time, I think Archaic put
I
a more.
managed to get on top of my production, so...
Yeah,
well,
he did.
well, one thing, ET pointed
Mhm.
out that you were only making 1 probe at a time. I think you control grouped for a while there.
Well, possibly. I don't know.
Yeah, because he was up by.
Yeah, for a good like 4 minutes, you would like queue up like 5 probes on your third base, and that was it. Your other 2 bases wouldn't be making any.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure if that was just like maybe actually I do it sometimes. I like overwrite my hotkey with just the
You
most
do
recent
too
base.
many long games in a row, there's a lot more room for mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it was like a 10+ worker lead for most of the game. At one point it was like 17. It was crazy. So that's what happened there. That explains the economic disadvantage that you were surprised to find.
And then game number 3, walk us through the plan, sir, because I know you were trying to trick him by hiding your buildings there on the bottom right of your natural, but he ended up finding it. But what was the plan behind that?
Just get him to put a bunch of defenses up front before I send my oracle to the workers. Nothing fancy.
Gotcha. ET, any questions here that we missed?
No, yeah, the only comment I was really going to make is about the probes in game 2. But yeah, a wild back and forth series. Anyone could have taken it. Very,
And I
very
got
well
more
played
games
overall.
ahead, too.
Yeah, more to look forward to.
Well, you're warmed up and you're ready to face the blind leading to death. But before we head there, KJ, any final questions here for Hyper Turtle?
Hyper Turtle, your Protoss looked sharper in many ways than the Archaic in those games. It just didn't turn out your way, but I think Protoss is your best race. You say
It
so
is.
or no?
In both games, StarCraft 1 and StarCraft 2. I tend to prefer just stuff where you can, basically batter your opponent right in the face and damage as many units as possible at once.
There you go.
But at the same time, I haven't been practicing as Protoss all that much. I mostly chose them because that's what we decided on for the team game next.
There you go. All right. Well,
Gotcha.
that's
Yeah,
all
that's
I
right.
had.
Because he's been dabbling with the different races more and more. Originally, when we started FSL, his rookie season, he played strictly Protoss.
Yep.
But this season, you played Terran and then Zerg, and mostly Zerg actually. So I think I'm gonna ask the Archaic here. I think he was preparing for your Zerg mostly, and was surprised about you playing Protoss throughout. But yeah, good games, and look forward to your 2v2 next up. But before we get to that 2v2, congratulations to the Archaic. Game number 1. How frustrated were you with all those invisible units that Hyper Turtle had?
So I saw them. You could say saw them. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll make observers, and I just didn't make observers. I'm like, okay, well, I didn't make observers. I'll just make the observers now, and I didn't make the observers. And then they just went downhill from there, honestly.
Gotcha. Where was it a case of being supply blocked and the observers were still stuck in the queue?
Probably not. I just was over microwing, I guess.
Gotcha. And it really showed your preference on using disruptors a lot. Do you like using disruptors in these games?
They're stressful. I actually would not prefer to use disruptors. I'd much rather prefer Storm, but he had so many stalkers in game 2, I think, and I just had to switch to disruptors there.
Gotcha. ET?
Yeah, I mean, it felt I think game 1, when the DTs kind of wrecked your army across the map, it seemed like you like pulled the observer, and then it just took way longer to get there than you thought it would. Is that kind of what happened there, or did it just take you a while to even think about pulling it there?
Both.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, yeah. That's pretty much the only question I have.
Any final questions, KJ, before we move on to our next match?
No questions. Nice job, and we'll see you guys soon.
Yeah. Now that was Hyper Turtle's last 1v1 game, but he is still definitely in it in 2v2, and we're gonna see him next. DR Cake's last game is this Friday actually, so we'll see him then. And good games.
All right. Okay.
All right. Moving on, we're gonna be jumping into this match number 2 between. They're really interesting. I really like to watch the Blind Leading the Deaf and what they have prepared. And also, the new Masters portrait, sporting that out in this matchup. And then against a tried and true veteran team, Tortoise and Hare. So let's just bring them in and talk to them real quick before we get started. So bringing in our players now. Welcome the Blind Leading the Deaf and Tortoise and Hare. We just saw Hyper Turtle, but let's start with the Blind Leading the Deaf. You guys were already ready to go an hour ago. The last match just took a lot longer than usual. But you guys prepared? How are you guys feeling? And what do you guys like your chances for tonight?
Can you get your shoes on?
At least a little bit prepared. I know we were planning on doing 2 matches tonight, so we tried to practice because that's a disproportionate number of matches for the season, but only going to be 1, but still all the preparation in place. So we'll see how it goes.
Nice. So preparation. How about Rex? Any any monkey in the wrench here? Because I know you're really strong macro Zerg, and whenever we watch your games. Whenever I look up, all of a sudden you're maxed out, right? And so, are you, any change in plans here, or any strats that I know you don't want to reveal it now, but anything that you've been practicing?
Well, I always practice my my micro, but it's not really my natural talent. I actually learned to play Zerg when Instability had a match last season against Dark Menace. And E.T. asked Chumley and me to play as an Archon against her, because he was like, "Oh, as an Archon, you'll be able to, be about the right level." And so we practiced. And anyway, my only job was to do the macro, and I never did any micro. And so for me, it's I have the whole learning curve left to do. So I practice it a lot, but it's slow.
That's some
Gotcha.
great
So
insider tip, right? Or at least history, background history.
That's where it started.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
To this day, I think of her as a Protoss. It's really weird.
Yeah, I played Protoss until like 8 months ago.
And now what do you like? You like Zerg more now, or?
I like them both. I really enjoy how different the Zerg macro is. We played RTS games since we were I think I was 3 when we started playing them, and there's nothing like Zerg in any RTS game. It's just so different, and it's really cool. I like it.
Nice.
Have you dabbled in Terran at all, or you just don't want to touch that?
I hate playing Terran. I just am so terrible. I don't know why.
Yeah, I remember
all
when
same.
my wife started playing StarCraft, and she started off with Terran, and she had a miserable time, and so I said, "Hey, why don't you try Zerg?" And she loved it so much she does not want to go back or touch Terran whatsoever. And so I feel you, and I see where you're coming from. But I'm excited for the games tonight. Any other questions, KJ?
So that was funny how we all kind of ragging on Terran, but we got Mr. Chumley here as Terran, who probably has some thoughts about it.
What
But
are you doing?
there you go. No other questions. Let's talk to the War Bunnies and Hyper Turtle team too. Let's ask them a couple questions here.
Yeah. So looks like Hyper Turtle is all warmed up, but War Bunnies, you're a frequent watcher in these FSL games. What do you think about this Blind Leading the Deaf? I'm sorry, team here that you're facing up against.
Well, I think that if
we lose, we're going to lose in the first 6 minutes, and I think if we're going to win, we're going to win at the 12-minute mark. So, yeah, I had a little hassle here. I had to send Scarlett home. David's match lasted as long as we thought we'd have Scarlett for both his games and our games today. So I have to get my son ready for bed soon, so we had to send him home. But we watched Blind Leading the Deaf, and they're really good in the early game. And so there's a distinct possibility that they get us. And if we can drag it out a little bit, I think that we'll be in good shape.
Gotcha. And question for Hyper Turtle. I know in your team games, you've been strictly playing Zerg. And one time I saw you play Terran, I think for a specific strat. But you mentioned earlier that you've been really preparing for Protoss. So what's the deal here for our 2v2?
Take out a lot of Marines and Zerglings quickly and efficiently and deadly.
Okay. All right. Any? That's all I have. ET questions?
No, I don't think any questions. I'm just excited to see how this pans out.
Same here. KJ, last words?
Last words is I'm really glad we added 2v2 to the FSL because it's just a unique, different feel to the league, and the games to watch is actually a lot of fun. And then casting is challenging, so.
Yeah.
Ever considered adding Archon?
We'll look into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll look into that. But it'll be discussion at our retrospective after the off season. So
I think it was tough because there wasn't an Archon ladder for a while for people to practice with.
Yeah,
so.
that too.
Yeah, that was interesting.
All right, but with that, we'll get started. You guys can move. Oh, actually, we should move Team Blind Leading the Deaf down to their channel, and we'll talk to you guys after the match. Good luck and have fun.
All right. ET's gonna take it away with the challenging casting. If you need my help, let me know. But I think I need to prepare for the neutrophil game here soon.
Yeah, you focus on that. That's a big one. Man, this is going to be interesting. The unexpected Protoss out of Hyper Turtle. I'm curious to see what the plan is there.
I know. So,
I mean,
you know what I've noticed when you mentioned that you're glad that we've added 2v2 in the FSL, and I've noticed that whenever we interview players have practiced more to prepare for 2v2 than they did for their 1v1s, and it's funny how that works out. But yeah, I'm excited, and I really want to see the Blind Leading the Deaf here and how they fare against this Brethren team. But take it away, ET. Good luck and have fun.
All right, here we go. We're loading in.
You are watching FSL Season 5.
All right, in the upper right-hand side of Nightscape LE, we have our yellow Protoss player. He is
Hyper Turtle.
And his ally in the red, also Protoss, he is
War Bunny.
And together, they are their opponents in the bottom left-hand side, the blue Zerg player. She is
Rex.
And her ally, the purple Terran, he is
Chun-Li.
Together, they are and hey, small plug on the Archon mode thing. My mother, also the mother of the Blind Leading the Deaf, has agreed to sign up for Archon mode with me if it gets added. So if you want to see that, we gotta make sure we get that added. I'm not sure I want to see that, but we'll see. Anyways, we got our players adding on gateways. This wall is about as beautiful as it gets for our Protoss players. As Chum-Li going for a double gas opening. I guess I can spill the beans now. So our latest little bit of practice we've done with the blind leading the deaf. We'll see how it pans out against double Protoss. It was actually mainly to prep against Benzel. But I heard some insight recently from the man Pig himself, saying that for mid-level 2v2 players, the best possible opening you can go for is the mirror matchup opening for your race. So open up like it's PvP, or open up like it's ZVZ, or open up like it's TVT, because they're inherently more safe, because they have to be. And so it allows for a bit more safety against all-ins, and also potential for aggression. So that's what we're going to be seeing out of the blind leading the deaf here. I don't know if it'll work out, but it was an idea. So we'll see what happens with it. I think we have a full wall out of the tortoise and the hare. They think that this is more aggressive than it is, I think. It is a bit of a Ling Bane pressure, but it does not have to get damage done by any means. So we'll see. Hellions on the way out as well for Chumley, who's adding on his natural base. And they see no expansions for their opponents, I think, with Rex's Overlords, so a valuable scout there. Okay, and do manage to kill that pylon. Adding on his Stargate now pretty quickly is War Bunnies. He's looking to expand. The expansions for the blind leading the deaf will be down before those of their opponents. I do kind of like the full wall thing. It's like, well, if they do go for a 4 racks, you're going to be in a pretty good spot doing that. That's for sure. As Rex floating quite a couple minerals there. I think maybe a little bit late on their first inject cycle, but not the biggest of deals. They'll be popping off relatively soon here, and makes 5 drones and 6 lings. So just a few lings going out. There's not going to be a whole lot to defend this for the tortoise and the hare on the low ground at the very least. So we'll see how they manage to fare here against, it's going to be triple Reaper, double Hellion, and some Lings and Banes potentially here. As poor Rex is mega supply blocked from that Overlord dying, not positioning it on a pylon or anything like that, a little unfortunately. Warping in some Banes, actually against the composition of their opponents. Baneling's not the most necessary, but there's no way to know that yet for these players. Chumley's going to go in quick. Banelings can blow up against the shield battery, which would be quite nice for them. Hellions and Reapers are pushing in a little bit. War Bunnies now aware of them, as well as Hyper Turtle, hanging them just a little bit. Lings and Banes now looking to move in. Baneling's blowing up on the Zealot, kind of unfortunately there. Just looking for probe damage at the moment is the blind and the deaf's forces. More and more Lings coming in, though. We'll be able to get on top of some of these Stalkers, and Hellion going into the main base. Do deny that shield battery as well, but I think should be a hold here for the tortoise and the hare. Immortals coming out now, and Chumley and Rex in a decent position. Slightly up in workers from their opponents, and with the third base coming down for Rex a little bit late. I was wondering why she was floating so many resources earlier. That's why. Should have already been down, but no big deal. Lair now on the way, adding on 2 more gases as well, getting a couple safety banes. And no positioning of the Lings out on the map, but shouldn't need to. I mean, they saw fairly passive compositions out of their opponents. War Bunny's actually not going for a sky-based composition just yet. Is adding on a second Stargate, perhaps a little worried about trying to get into air with that pressure that was coming out from his opponents. Chumley, it looks like, is just going Marine, Tank, Medevac at the moment. And we have yet to see the tech out of Rex. Maximus Reximus. Continuing to work her up is all of our players. Let's get some Immortals out, some Stalkers as well. Charge now on the way for Hyper Turtle. And that second Stargate finishing up. Void Ray starting to pump out for our Protoss player. And Engineering Base coming out for Chumley as well, who's going for an 8 Marine drop against a player with a Stargate. We'll see how this works out or pans out. Third base is being taken for the Tortoise and the Hare. One of which is a gold base, which will be quite nice for them. Rex continuing to drone up. And that drop actually may go directly into that gold base. Boosting in is Chumlee. There aren't too many Void Rays out yet, so this should be able to get a decent bit of damage, potentially. Dropping out a little bit in advance. And then we'll be able to... Oh no! The one Marine alerts the probes! We'll be able to kill 5 to 6 probes, I think. And the Void Ray is not targeting the medevac. Actually, a little bit of a mistake. The medevac may just get out. I like that. Out of Chumlee. Medevac does just run home. Loses 8 Marines, but kills 5 to 6 probes, I want to say. So, not bad overall. 7 probes do go down for War Bunnies. So, an effective first drop for Chumlee there. Third base is finished up for both our Protoss players. Looks like Hyper Turtle is going to look to get either Disruptors or Colossi out. Spire is on the way for Rex, adding on some more Roaches as well. And getting some creep spread moving out on the map, which is good to see. More and more Overlords coming out as well. Pretty even economies across the board. Third base kind of late for Chumlee a little bit. Is now floating out. It's not too late. Just a little bit behind that of the Protoss is nothing too much to worry about. You have full saturation on the minerals out of Hyper Turtle here. Very nice probing out of him in this game. Adding on to Templar Archives as well. So it looks like we're just going to see a ton of different splash damage out of Hyper Turtle. Maybe Storms and Colossi. And War Bunnies is going to go for that air army. He's going into carriers quite quickly, which means with these Corruptors now pouring out for Rex. And only 5 Void Rays. That could be a good counter to the carriers if there's only 5 Void Rays that far into the game. Hyper Turtle looking to deal some damage with the drop, potentially. And some DTs. There is a turret here, but there's no units to defend said turret, so it will fall. There are scans available. Chumlee just lifts. And the army's moving over to defend against that. Oh, and the Warp Prism even goes down, which means these DTs may fall. Chumlee scan! Chumlee scan! Okay. 3 DTs do fall. They kill like a turret and a couple workers. Not bad for Chumlee and Rex. We're continuing to pump out more and more units. And yeah, it is going to be just Colossus Storm, basically, for Hyper Turtle here. Who is mildly supply block, getting that +1 upgrade on the way. +2 ground ranged attacks on the way for Rex. And +1 armor for the air units, which will help a lot against those carriers, which War Bunnies is continuing to pump out. Infestation Pit on the way as well. Up to 60 drones. We'd like to see a 4th base here pretty soon for both Chumlee and Rex. Maybe that gold base coming into effect would be nice. As War Bunnies and Hyper Turtle are both adding on their 4th bases. Another 8 Marine drop is coming out. It was scouted by Hyper Turtle, potentially. So maybe able to block that. I think there's some cannons in that gold base as well to block that drop. 1 cannon. Maybe able to sail right past that. We'll see. Does boost past. And is going to go into the main base. Maybe nope. Just going to drop right behind the mineral line. We'll be able to wear out that shield battery pretty quickly, especially if he stems here. And indeed he does. Loads up and tries to go into the main base. Does get taken out by an ambient carrier hanging out there. Ambient? I don't know. DTs find the 4th base of Rex. With how late this 4th is, it would especially suck if it were to get canceled by the DTs, and it will get killed by the DTs, not just canceled. It does look like no cancel at the last possible second, I think, out of Rex and Chumlee there. This scan will be able to take down the 3 DTs, but still good value there for Hyper Turtle. War Bunnies needs to add on, I think, more Stargates. Has not gotten enough of them just yet. Rex only sitting at 12 Corruptors, though. Definitely needs to add on about 20 more, I want to say. To be able to take on that air army. 12 is good, but definitely needs more. There we go, 15. What is up with players and reading my mind today? What on earth is happening? Or am I just that good? I don't know. You decide in chat. Let me know. This Marine army is going to get torched, absolutely lasered by Colossi. There are 5 tanks with 2 more on the way. I like that double factory out of Chumley. Not something I've ever seen him do before, so a good on-the-fly adjustment to the number of Colossi he was seeing out of Hyper Turtle there. Very nicely done, indeed. This is going to be +1/+1 air upgrades for Rex. +2 on the ground Roaches. Roaches should be able to tank the first few Colossi shots if they're in front of the Marines, which means the Marines will be able to help fight against those Void Rays maybe with the Corruptors. We'll see. The only thing is our players in the bottom left are on pretty low economies. The players in the top right aren't on the biggest, but Hyper Turtle definitely starting to take off and get a pretty big bank set up for himself. We do see +3, +2 on the way for the air army of War Bunnies, and that is worrisome for those Corruptors. The upgrades on the Corruptors not moving the fastest for sure. Hive is coming down for Rex, who is maxed out. Chumley nearly maxed out as well. Well ahead of their opponents. Maybe get a lot of damage done with some tank pushes or something like that. But maybe worried about pushing in to Hyper Turtle and War Bunnies. Many a team has fallen on the sword of Hyper Turtle and War Bunnies defense in the past. And I'm sure they don't want to be the next. But every minute they wait, Hyper Turtle and War Bunnies armies are just going to get better and better. War Bunnies has done a good job of balancing in quite a few Void Rays. There's 6 out in his army and 9 carriers against 27 Corruptors for Rex, who has still not started +2 for her air army. Really needs to get that out. Creep Tumors being cleared bit by Hyper Turtle and War Bunnies. If War Bunnies is caught out without Hyper Turtle's army, as he may be here, that would be quite bad for him. Some of the army getting pulled out into the open by Rex's Corruptors and Roaches, which are now charging in. Hyper Turtle's not here, and there's no splash damage to deal with these Corruptors. Target fire's going down on the carriers from Rex. 2 fall. A third, fourth. More and more carriers are falling. Storms are going down, but the tanks are sieging up now. More target fire coming out of the Corruptors of Rex. He's trying to dodge storms. A massive fight. So many massive storms on the army of Chumley. The tanks in the top falling. The Marines trying to survive. We'll be able to take out some of the Archons, and a lot of the storms have gone down, but this is so much bruised bio. Even 1 or 2 storms may be enough to close it out. 28 more Corruptors on the way for Rex and Chumley. They're still even in supply. They do have some more tanks here, which will be helpful against these Colossi. The army fighting a little disjointedly for War Bunnies and Hyper Turtle for sure here. 28 Corruptors now out. They're going to go in for round 2 of Target Fire City. Trying to take out the Colossi of Hyper Turtle for her ally, it looks like. But I think needs to just target that air army down. Targeting the carriers rather than the Void Rays a little, unfortunately. We'll be able to take down all the carriers, thinking maybe that her allies' units will be able to take down the Void Rays. More carriers coming in, though, and they're almost out of money. Only 7 Corruptors remaining against 2 carriers, 6 Voids, and a Tempest. The target firing decision-making out of Rex. I think a mistake here. Should have gone for the Void Rays, not the carriers initially. Or maybe just shouldn't have even fought with Void Ray overcharge happening. And it looks like the blind leading the deaf may indeed fall in game number 1. To the Tortoise and the Hare. A little bit slow on their expansions. Some incorrect target fire here and there as well. And they're making a lot of turrets to try and survive. Trying to counterattack with Lings as well. Take down the extra bases of their opponents. We'll be able to kill that 1 base, but I don't know that that's going to be enough. A lot of DTs are falling for Hyper Turtle. There are more and more Corruptors coming out bit by bit. This 4th base is so important for Rex, and all the units on it are just going to be annihilated here. They will be able to take out the 5th bases of their opponents, but those are 5th bases. They're not as important here, and the DTs clean house on the Marines of Chumley. Needs to run back with those medevacs. And yeah, I think this is going to be game. It may take a little while for our players in the bottom left to tap out, as they do still have some amount of economy. A bit of an army, but they're far down in supply at this point. Yeah, I think we're going to see a closeout here shortly. They're doing their best. They don't want to give up. But man, I think it really just came down to the target fire out of Rex being on the carriers rather than those Void Rays. You kill those first 6 Void Rays, and then so much of the DPS versus your Corruptors is just gone. So definitely very unfortunate there. They're doing their best, but it may not end up being enough. Likely will not end up being enough. Their opponents just have so much economy, and they're struggling to even get above 100 supply at this point. Upgrades continuing to come down for Hyper Turtle and War Bunnies. And more DTs just going in and getting damage done. I think the attack was pretty well timed, had a lot of potential. Again, it was just that target fire is really what it comes down to. It's so difficult as the Zerg and the Terran there. They did a valiant effort in that first fight, but just barely not able to close it out. And from there, a big lead is established for their opponents, who are now approaching maxed out, as Rex still hurting at 67 supply, almost no income, as both of her main mining bases were killed. Chumley does have a decent-sized army and a good amount of supply, but it's mostly Marines. There's no real tanks to deal with the splash damage of Hyper Turtle. And even with those Marines, I'm not sure that they're enough to take down that many carriers. There are Widow Mines coming out, which are helpful against carriers and Void Rays. Just not that helpful, I don't think. And the army of War Bunnies sharks in, while the DTs of Hyper Turtle and some Zealots run by as well. There were Roaches quasi in position, but we'll catch the Zealots, but not those DTs. And Chumley hurting for economy now, every bit as much as his ally. Rex has managed to establish one mining base. Has so much gas. If they could just get a small injection of a couple thousand minerals each, that would be huge. But I think the third base just fell to 3 DTs of Chumley, and that hurts a lot. Very unnecessary loss of the orbital there, but it's hard to keep track of everything that's going on, especially when there's an entire maxed out carrier armory flying into your main base. At that point, the 3 DTs probably aren't your main concern. Few Marines of Chumley get caught. They do reveal the position of the army of Hyper Turtle and War Bunnies. I don't think knowing where they are is going to be enough in this case. Going for a massive base trade is Chumley. As Rex's few Corruptors are getting slaughtered here. I don't think a counterattack's going to be enough, especially at only 128 supply. Marines do be killing stuff quick. I'll give them that. The medevac's kind of just hanging back, saying, "I won't heal you from those stim packs. Why would you think I'd do that?" And ow. The turtle does recall. All right, well, an exciting first game. For sure. And we'll be heading into game number 2. But yeah, I think really if the Void Rays have been targeted first, or maybe even just fighting once they were done being aligned. might have gone differently. But a close game for sure. Anything could happen in these following games. Sorry, sometimes I have to give a quick post-game recap to other people. But anyways, we are getting ready to load into the next game. It's going to be Ruscallion for our next one. All right. And we're just getting our players into the match, and then we'll be able to start momentarily. Looks like our players are ready. So we're going to be hopping into game. It's Ruscallion LE for game number 2. We are loading in. Excited to see what happens in this game. Last one was pretty crazy, big fights, and I expect we'll see more of the same here. All right. In the upper left-hand side of the map, we have our purple Protoss player. He is
Hyper Turtle.
And his ally in the left side, the blue Protoss, he is
War Bunnies.
Together, they are
Turtis and Hare.
In the bottom right-hand side, the teal Zerg, she is
Rex.
Her ally in the red, he is
Chun-Li.
Oh, and together they are so on and so forth.
The Blind Leader.
Now, we have a low ground wall off out of Hyper Turtle and War Bunnies. I like that. It's a smart move for sure with double Protoss. Looks like potentially the same build out of Chumley and Rex as previous. Something similar-ish, at least. Hatch gas pool out of Rex. No double gas out of Chumley just yet. Only single. His barracks hidden a little bit in the back, interestingly enough. So it's not the same build at all. Now, I'm not sure what it's going to be, but I have a guess. I think it's going to be no idea. I think it might be their Ghost Rush. I don't think it's their Nuke Rush, though. This doesn't quite look like the right build. Okay, it's going to be a 2-on-1. I like that as well. 2-on-1. Just go back to the basics a little bit. I think they decided to not, because of how hard their opponents prepped for their attack in the previous game. I think they're just deciding to skip it, get a little bit of economy instead. However, their opponents will know that. So we'll see if they change things up as well. Slightly earlier expansions out of them initially, just as a starting switch up. As Cyber Cores are finishing up and Adepts are on the way for War Bunnies. It's 2 Adepts at a time. So maybe looking to get some damage done of his own. Maybe just worried about Ling Floods from the previous game, obviously. Adepts a lot better against Reapers and Hellions and Lings than Stalkers from the previous game, so. We do have injects going down for our players. By players, I mean player. Only one of them is Zerg. Natural base now dropping for Hyper Turtle, slightly behind that of War Bunnies, who is getting his first Stargate. And a shield battery on the way as well. Third base coming down for Rex. Chumlee getting his natural orbital up and going. Got his factory nearly done. And a 2-on-1 16 Marine drop could do quite a bit against the strategies that the Tortoise and the Hare go for. I think. We'll have to see exactly how it pans out, but I think it could be quite strong. Just have to see how smoothly it's executed by Chumlee, who has forgotten his second gas, and so it's not going to be really executed at all because he can't make a Stargate. So never mind. Excuse me. Yeah, you can't make your starport yet, and you definitely can't make your medevac. So it's going to be a pretty late 2-on-1, unfortunately, for Chumlee here. But not the end of the world by any means. A quick forge on the way for War Bunnies, Robo on the way for Hyper Turtle, and fully saturated on minerals in her natural base is Rex at 37 drones. Going to be adding on more for her third base as well. Going Lair, Roach Warren, Evo Chamber. Right at just about the right timings, I would argue. I would submit to the court. And more drones coming down. Starport is now on the way. It's definitely a little bit late, but not the end of the world by any means. Adding on a second factory very quickly is Chumlee, so he's going to want to get a lot of siege tanks, I think. But again, might delay his medevacs ever so slightly. At least one of them, it looks like. Not by much, though. Oh, he's got his natural gases coming in as well, so yeah, it won't be delayed hardly at all. Big pogs. 16 Marines are now out. 2 medevacs now on the way. Stem going to be finishing up, and there it goes. You have a Robo Bay coming down for Hyper Turtle. Void Rays and a second Stargate coming out for War Bunnies. And Adepts being warped in still, so maybe still worried about those Lings. +1 and Roach Speed on the way for Rex. And that Lair obviously then finished up. Starting to mine gas from all 3 bases. Should be taking a 4th in the near future as well. And it looks like an Observer coming out for Hyper Turtle into the 3rd base of Rex. So it does see that. I think we'll just barely miss this drop. So this drop is going to be a big part of how this game really starts to turn throughout. As it could get a lot of damage, or it could get very little. Hyper Turtle obviously pretty low in supply, but Chumlee's going to drop directly on top of those 2 Stalkers, I think. He's going just barely past them, maybe. Yeah, it does go barely past the Stalkers. Drop! 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 Tries to catch the 1. Good pullback out of Chumlee. Continues to drop in now. Drop! Drop the rest of the Marines! Oh no! Boost! Oh, the other medevac didn't have boost. Still does get out with 1 medevac, so not too bad. A decent drop. Could have been better for sure, obviously, but not too bad at the end of the day. Fleet Beacon on the way for War Bunnies. A lot of Roaches on the way for Rex. Chumlee, double tank production to deal with that splash damage, just like last game, but it's earlier on this time, so he should have a lot of tanks. By the time everyone reaches max out, which may or may not happen in this game. It did in the last one, so I'm sort of expecting it in this game, but we'll see. As Rex at 63 drones does not take a 4th base just yet. Definitely been a little bit slow in both games. Take a 4th base. Chumlee a little bit slow to take a 3rd in this game. Is just now starting. Definitely a little bit behind what it could be. And is in the main base, so it'll have to float down as well quite a ways. Does have out 5 tanks, 18 Marines and a medevac, with 35 Roaches and a Spire on the way, 12 more Roaches. It looks like they're going to try and hit a big attack at the 3rd base. With 5 Void Rays out, I think this actually has a lot of potential. Marines are very good against Void Rays. There's so many tanks, they should be able to deal with those Colossi. And the army of Hyper Turtle, I think, is all the way in the main base, potentially, so a long way from being able to help out, which means these tanks should be able to get a nasty position, potentially. And he's going to slow push. Forget I said anything. Oh, he's going to very slow push it. Okay, Hyper Turtle's army is starting to move down now. If Rex moves in and Chumlee sieges up, this is going to be a hard nut to crack of siege tanks. A nut of siege tanks, I think, is the technical term for a lot of tanks. Siege you! Oh no, siege the tanks. Okay, tanks are sieging. Massive biles on the Void Raised. Oh my gosh! Huge biles. Targets down the overcharged battery and huge biles on the carriers! Oh my word! A massive attack out of Chumley and Rex here, annihilating the Protoss armies. I mean, that was just huge biles on those void-raising carriers. I'm talking about how Marines are good against carriers. What about Ravagers, baby? Channeling Dark here is Rex, maxed out, and this is exactly what Steph was talking about in that pregame interview. If you leave Rex alone, you better fear for your life, because things are about to go very poor for you. Goodness gracious, that was insanity there. Massive corrosive biles. Those are some of the nastiest corrosive biles on air I've seen. Definitely the nastiest I've seen in the FSL. Holy cannoli. Great play out of Rex there and Chumley. Good adaptation saying, what if we didn't let you get a big army, right? What if we just kind of went for it? And GG's called. Woo! Those were some humongous biles, ladies and gentlemen. Holy cow. That was just insanity. That was just insanity. And we're going to get a game 3 in this 2v2 match. Sheesh! I think those are the best biles in FSL history, man. That was... I mean, that was like 6 voids and 2 carriers to corrosive biles. Holy cow, dude. That was insanity. Wow. Holy moly, ladies and gentlemen. Woof. Sports Center highlights worthy. Very true. Well, everybody, you should definitely drop a follow for those corrosive biles if you haven't already. Here at the FSL, we will be casting every Wednesday and Friday. We're actually getting ready to head into the playoffs soon. You don't want to miss it, as the playoffs are going to be pretty darn epic. And holy cow, that army value graph in that previous game is insane. Really, just the what happens if you let Rex get to 3 bases and make roaches in just one little snapshot. Double the army supply of anyone else in the game. And oh my gosh, the War Bunnies thing as well. You can see the exact moment of the corrosive biles where the blue line just drops to the floor. Holy cow. 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to grab another bottle of water really quick. I ran out of my last one in the previous series. You got to take care of yourselves. Be right back. All right, I've retrieved some sweet nectar of the gods, a.k.a. water. And we're ready to head into our final game as soon as our players say they are ready. And here we go. We are starting. It's going to be heavy artillery to close things out. A little bit more closed off of the map. So maybe benefits defense a little bit more than Rascallion on that third base. And man, oh man, am I happy to see a game 3 always. All right.
You are watching FSL Season 5.
Well, we weren't sure we'd make it, but here we are. It's game number 3 in this 2v2 series. In the purple, we have
Hyper
and
Turtle.
his ally. In the blue, he is
War Bunnies.
together. They are
Turbis and Hare.
their opponents. In the upper right, we have our teal Zerg player. She is
Rex.
And her ally in the red. He is.
Chun-Li.
Together, they are.
The blind leading the deaf.
All right. Well, we'll see what our players have in store for us here. In game number 3, will we see something more aggressive out of Hyper Bunnies? War Turtle? Who knows? Or will we just see the same old, same old? Same old, same old is fine, you know, that too. I don't mind that. The third bases will be more defensible in this game, I want to say. So that will help if there are big attacks out of Chun-Li and Rex. So we do have the Cybercore coming down. It looks like we are going to see the same build out of Chun-Li. Very fast reactor. Hopefully he doesn't forget his second gas this time around. But other than that, it should be pretty much the same build. Ladies and gentlemen, I regret to inform you, he's already forgotten it. It should already be down by now, I think. I don't know much about Terran, but I think it's supposed to be down. No matter. Second barracks starting up, so it is going to be generally the same build here. It's Rex scouting around, making sure there's no shenaniganry going on, and I think is going to start a third base in the back there, possibly. As Hyper Turtle has a probe attacking a supply depot, so that his DTs will have an easier time breaking into the base later on. You heard it here first, ladies and gents. Not expanding to the back, it looks like, is Rex. Hyper Turtle making a Stargate as well as War Bunnies this time around. So they're both potentially going to go air. Maybe they'll both rush out an Oracle, and then you'll have double Oracle. Around the time you'd have single Oracle. Big brain, it's a possibility, we'll see. Meanwhile, third base is going down for Rex. +1 air weapons on the way for War Bunnies already. So very fast out of him there. No warp gate out of either player, so they're not going to have much in the way of ground forces this time. Second gas, I'm happy to report, did go down on time for Chun-Li, roughly, so he's going to have enough gas to actually make his starport, I think. So everybody can... That's me applauding, if you couldn't tell. So in theory, his 2-1-1 might even be a little bit earlier this time around. There are going to be a lot of air units out to deal with it, possibly, though, so we'll see how that pans out for him. It was not the double Oracle. It was single Oracle, though, for Hyper Turtle, I believe, is the one who went for the Oracle. Yes, indeed. And it looks like it's going to go for Chun-Li's bases. Stim pack going down. Medevac's going to be starting up soon as well. That +1 air, well over halfway done. And Hyper Turtle now starting up Warp Gate and some more Adepts, another Gateway. So just going to try and do some Oracle harassment damage. Going into the main base right now is the Oracle of Chun-Li. The Oracle of Hyper Turtle is going to the main base of Chun-Li, I should say. English. It's kind of difficult. Getting a lot of damage done. Chun-Li not really reacting very quickly at all, unfortunately. Was hitting his macro cycles, guys. He's going to hit his macro cycles, don't you know? And there's a lot of energy left on this Oracle. Will get found. Barely makes it away, so very nice for him there. Engineering Bay has finished up, so that's nice enough. Not enough minerals to make his medevacs, though. Another day, another delay, unfortunately, for Chun-Li here. We do have Hyper Turtle and War Bunnies macroing up. Rex, though, has gone unabated. And when Rex goes unabated, things start to look kind of scary. However, there's going to be more air out for the Protosses, but that might actually wind up hurting them based on how last game went, you know? Rex is just going to say, oh, more units to hit with the same amount of biles? Don't mind if I do. We will see. Double medevac now coming out for Chun-Li. I'd like to see him maybe not even go across the map, or if he does, be very cautious. You don't want to lose all those Marines, especially in that later push against the air. You don't want to have to rely on biles. even if you maybe can. But looks like he is going to go out. We'll see what winds up happening with that drop. It's going towards War Bunny's base, which does have a shield battery and some Void Rays there. So potential easy hold. Carrier's already on the way for War Bunnies. So that's very nice for him. Rex has hit her worker count just about. Going to start pumping those roaches, and +1 with roach speed coming down now. Double tank production, I imagine, will start up fairly soon for Chumley, who can take a pretty easy third base if he should so desire. Yeah, with carriers already being out, that's going to be kind of scary there. Scariers? Uh-oh, I think the drop of Chumley might be seen by Hyper Turtle, and indeed it is. Does he see it? See it, though. No reaction out of the two Protosses just yet. Chumley does boost in. He has stim done, but there's a lot of units here. I think all these Marines may just die. No, target the battery! Oh, rip. Fighting everything except what he needs to, unfortunately, is Chumley. Will make it out with one medevac just like last game. Oh! Doesn't make it out with the medevac. I misspoke. So that's very unfortunate. Chumley now only at 53 supply. And I think this game might already be going, hate to say it, this early. But Hyper Turtle and War Bunny's looking good already. Carrier's already out. And Rex not adding on a Hydra Den is going to have to purely rely on those biles with so many Marines going down as well. The second factory's way later for Chumley. And it feels like his macro has just not been the same ever since the Oracle incident of 1995. +1 is now on the way, but third base is coming up for both of their opponents. Should be able to have plenty of shield batteries, cannons, whatever else they really want at those bases here in the near future. Rex is rapidly approaching max out, but that's actually kind of unfortunate because that means they're going to have, at most right now, 13 Ravagers, which is not a ton of Ravagers. She's looking to push out, morph in a bunch of Ravagers, 8 at the moment. Maybe we'll take a fourth base behind this and get some Hydras out. That may work as well. +2, only a little over halfway done, so it won't come into effect in this push. He's waiting for Chumley, but I imagine Chumley's saying in her ear right now, I have no units. So we'll see. We'll see how that pans out. If they try and push straight into the main choke, I feel like that may go very badly for them. They really need to just take out the third base and the fourth base that are out on the map and then call it good, I think. Yeah, and see, they are ready now. Oh, and a massive stasis ward may go off here in the near future. Chumley's Marines are able to fight a small portion of the Void Rays by themselves initially. But so much of Rex's army is trapped in a stasis ward, and most of its Ravagers, which are her only source of anti-air. She's just making more Roaches. Really should make a Hydra Den at this point so that she can just make a ton of Hydras against the inevitable counter push. And that went terribly, unfortunately. Chumley not keeping his units alive from that drop really may have been the difference in that game, or in that fight. There's an additional 16 Marines and 2 medevacs is nothing to sneeze at there. And of course, Rex fighting a little bit disjointedly with her ally, was not there to help. And so she wound up getting stasis warded and having no Ravagers before her ally was even there to really fight. And now no Ravagers, still Hydra Den only halfway done. Does have +2 and is going to try and just backstab with the Roaches, it looks like, as there's really no ground units to worry about. She can make a pretty stunning amount of Hydras. It's going to be about 20, I think, if I'm mathing correctly. Hyper Turtle obviously suffering a little bit more than his ally. And I do like this run by. Is forcing them back, but should now just run up to the north and kind of just not really go deep in and lose all of these Roaches. She's going to go deep in and lose all of these Roaches. It's okay, but definitely hurts. We'll be able to kill a lot of probes here, which is nice, especially because they are War Bunnies, who is the more scary player at the moment. So the more economy of his you can damage, the better, really. Hydra's now coming out, getting the Hydros upgrades as well, but now under 100 supply are both of our players, while War Bunny's at 150 supply, 100 of which is carriers. Just about 3 more carriers about to pop. He's going to have 2-2 air upgrades against 2-1 for the Hydralisks. And 1-1 for the Marine Widowmine. The Widowmines actually might be the saving grace here, honestly. But there is Psystorm out now. Psystorm's such a scary upgrade to fight. But War Bunnies might be fighting a little disjointedly himself this time around, as the Void Rays make it there much ahead of the carriers. 2 Void Rays do go down for free, but Rex needs to run back now and fight with the rest of the army. Rex does run back, but there's no Widowmines here yet. It's just Marines. It's just Hydralisks. And the storm is rapidly getting over here. They don't know it yet. They don't know that there's storm to even worry about. Now they see it. Now they feel it. Really. And I think this is going to be a push through and a win by Hyper Turtle and More Bunnies quite potentially here. Just so far up in supply. And a valiant effort out of the blind leading the death. 4 tanks. Not going to help a ton here. Maybe able to zone out the remaining storms, but they're not even all sieged, unfortunately. And so I think with that, it's going to be game. There's not a ton of interceptors left relative to the number of carriers, but it's enough. 40 interceptors, 10 being produced at a time, and 10 carriers is just such a scary number. A good try, but it's going to be GG. And GG is called.
Bunnies. Hyper Turtle.
Good games. Exciting back and forth. Good job, the War Bunnies and Hyper Turtle combo. But also good games by the blind leading the deaf. Let's start with them. Game number 2 was amazing. I think it's one of the, as ET called it, one of the best biles that has been pulled off in FSL history. So have you been practicing those biles, Rex? And it looks like you were really spot on and whenever you launched them.
Yeah, well, ET set me up with the rapid fire hotkey, and it's like a kid in a candy store. It's not good.
No, but yeah, it did its job in game number 2 when you guys did your mid-game push. You guys did not have that much anti-air. You guys were relying on, I think, about 10 or 12 Marines, which I don't think was enough to be able to handle the number of carriers and Void Rays. But because those biles hit straight on, it dwindled out the anti-air that the Roaches just marched in and killed everything else. So that was a really good job. And game number 3, Chum-Li, I think you guys were trying to pull off the same thing, except you got derailed by that one Oracle. Did you notice the Oracle was going through your workers that early, or did you not notice until very late, until you lost double digits?
I didn't notice at first. Rex said Oracle, but I thought she had scouted an Oracle, not that there was an Oracle in my base. So it wasn't till, obviously double digits that I realized what was going on.
Gotcha.
That was obviously an issue.
Was it the same push strategy in game 3 that you guys employed in game number 2?
Yeah, that was the general idea. Is we thought, maybe this time just try to build a few more Marines instead of a few more tanks, and go with it that way. But it just didn't pan out this time. We didn't have any miracle biles, so.
Well, the biles somewhat hit, just didn't kill the units. But I think your plan of bringing more Marines got derailed because of you were just behind economically, and so unfortunately, that push didn't have the same punch as before. But it was a really good strat, and it looks like you guys practiced it, and I think it could kill a lot of players if you guys were not hindered or just set back a little bit. So unfortunately, that was the case. But good games overall. Game number 1, that was crazy as well. I think it was just a matter of focus fire, but I think let ET ask those questions. But good games. ET, go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess game 1, obviously, the splash damage, I think, was just even a little bit... I think Chumley kind of recognized that there was going to be a lot of splash damage, so he went double tanks, but I think there was even more than you could have initially anticipated. And then Rex, targeting, I think, the carriers because that's what you think to target first. You don't. It doesn't necessarily occur that the Void Rays are going to be what's ripping your Corruptors. Is that kind of what happened there, Rex? Basically, just a little bit of a. I think your micro was good. It was just a.
Misdirected.
You were microing the wrong thing, yeah, so to speak.
Yeah. I thought the carriers are what you're supposed to go for, but I guess that shows what I know. I'll do it differently next time.
All right. Well, yeah, I think that was my main question.
I think most people like to parasitic bomb the Void Rays and then wait until then to move in.
Gotcha.
Give
KJ,
'em
questions?
ideas.
No questions on my side. It was a lot of fun to watch, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Blind leading the Deaf, unfortunately, are eliminated from the playoffs. But it's funny because you guys have 1 match win, but you guys have 5 map wins. And so that means even though you've fallen the match, you guys keep taking a map victory against your opponents. I think it's just a matter of just wrapping up the loose ends and tying it up together and get that final 3rd game that seems to elude you guys a lot of times. But unfortunately, this is we have 1 game left, but unfortunately you guys are eliminated from the playoffs. It's pretty exciting watching you guys, but good games. And congratulations. Go ahead, AJ.
Sorry, let me say one more thing. They remind me of last season's instability. Kind of spread out her wins, but just didn't win enough series. So maybe next season they'll be the favorites.
Yeah, I mean that's a sign.
Yeah.
They're at the sign that they're just right there. They just can't finish the match itself. And for some reason something goes wrong in game number 3. And you're right, that's what happened with instability last season. But this year, she's able to close out those games. So hopefully next season, the Blind leading the Deaf will do the same. And we'll see you guys in the playoffs. But in the meantime, we'll look forward to your last match against Benzel. But we will have to schedule that and see when Sir Maligan is ready to play again. So, good games. And congratulations to Turtis and Hare. Looking at your record here, I think you guys are comfortably in a spot where you're going to be going to the playoffs. But that's a good win. So Hyper Turtle, that was a good plan there. So really, you take care of AoE to keep those pesky Marines away from the carriers. So was that the game plan?
It's always the game plan, regardless of what race I am. It's just keep guys from killing Bunny's fleet.
Unless I walk into Biles, then they can kill my fleet pretty easy.
Yeah. So it really, the overall strategy doesn't change regardless of what race I am. I'm just trying to kill whatever stands the best chance of killing Bunny's fleet.
Gotcha. And you did a good job because there's a ton of Marines from Chun-Li's side, and the only way you could stop that really was AoE. The Colossus were there. You could see Rex trying to target them down frantically to keep them away from the Marines. But then the Psy Storms came, which it's hard to keep that away. But it's a good plan. But at the same time, War Bunnies, we know your game plan, we know your forte, you know what you go for, and you do that. But for some reason, you always seem to get there.
I have one trick. I can 4-gate as well, just we're not as good of a team at that. But for this, I have the one trick, and you practice it a lot, you get good. I don't fear a person who's practiced 10,000 kicks. I fear a person who's practiced one kick 10,000 times. So
Gotcha.
Those Biles were really, really spot on both games.
They have really impressive armies, that's for sure. I'm glad.
David and I bungled about as bad as you could bungle our structure, our building areas. The first 2 games, if we were playing, what was that? Is it Imba or do I suck? The only thing they would have said is, you guys need to learn to build a wall, because we locked ourselves in the first games, and then the second time, I think half the second game was us trying to figure out the wall correctly. We bunked the third game. We just gave up. Like, no wall.
I handled the one wall.
Screw it. Just gonna, if they rush us, they'll kill us. Cause I don't know if you noticed, but like the first game, half the game we were stuck in our first. After we got out, we had to kill the wall. Then we got out, and then I accidentally re-walled. So then all our buildings and units were stuck in the main for like another, like, where's my 5th gateway? Where's my 4th gateway? What the? Oh, yeah, I'm stuck in the base. That's real great. And they almost got us because of that. But
well, fortunately, flying units can go over buildings. So.
yeah, but probes set to nexuses
Yeah,
don't.
yeah.
And so
you could probably tell that I was starting to get a little bit tired out by this point.
yeah, but they
A lot of
played.
work day, too.
I would say that those two played their best game against us. Those were much better than the games we'd seen
Yeah, not
previous.
relying on those proxy 4Xs that I think it was clear that they were noticing that other people had started to recognize that they'd go that a lot.
And they had a really good strategy. Rex is really, really good at building an army fast. So yeah, it was tough today.
That's my one skill. I told you.
Yeah,
Exactly. You know, why change what works, right?
right.
Yeah, just wait till she had Hydra then earlier. You're in trouble.
There were Hydras at the end, but they were a little bit late.
Yeah.
It's
By that
when
time, we
Chumley
already had
comes in
plenty of
with
Storm.
what Chumley comes in with the Ravens to disable, and the mass Marine running Maru style, stimming and moving. Then they'll be unstoppable.
Wait till he discovers nuke.
Yeah. Well, they do have a nuke build, which they've employed in one of their
Oh.
earlier games. It's one of the first times I've ever seen an FSL where a double nuke was launched by each side.
Yeah.
And it's one of those pretty cool moments. But ET, do you have any questions here for Turtison here?
I think you all covered it pretty well. It was a pretty cool series. Yeah, some epic biles, and then just some great defense out of y'all. So well played, and good luck in the rest of your series.
Thank you, guys.
KJ?
No, it's.
Oh,
KJ?
Right.
No questions. Nice job. Congrats. And looking forward to seeing
Thank
more
you.
games from you guys.
Okay,
We'll get
gonna
you
look,
next week.
I'm gonna look away from the monitor now.
Yeah. So Turtison here is a good spot at 3-1, but their last two games are
Top
actually
teams.
against GG Izzy, which
High
is the
ranks,
number
yeah.
one, the number one seed right now, and against Little Dom. And so I think that last playoff spot will be battled between Team Little Dom and Turtison here. Maybe. So we'll see how that goes,
Alright,
but I look
we'll
forward
see.
to it. Yeah.
Purifiers as well.
Yeah, so Purifiers are done, so it's just a matter of tiebreakers here. So
Yeah.
Purifiers do have 7 map wins already, so they might be out, but we don't know. So we'll see how Turtison here gets those map victories, but they're going to become hard to come by against the last two teams. But I'm looking forward to watching those games. So,
All right,
Yeah.
guys.
James.
GG.
Good games, guys.
All right. Wow. That's a pretty cool set of games there. We were trying to buy time for this last game, but it looked like the games themselves did that for us, giving us 2 long 3-game series.
Yep. Indeed.
ET, I mean, I know you're tired casting these action-packed games.
No, I mean my voice is telling me stop, but my heart's telling me go. It's a lot of fun. That was a pretty crazy series.
Sean.
Yeah, it was good overall, and I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to
it's
this final one we've got.
So what do we got here? Code S. You know, actually, let me paint this first, the scenario here. So in Code S, we've got instability up top, and right behind her are
Let's show it. Let's
four.
show it.
Yeah, let's show it. Right behind her are 3 5-win players, and so those 3 5-win players are pretty comfortably there. You know, it's not a foregone conclusion, but the 5th slot is the one that's in contention here, and the one that are fighting for that would be Freedom and Ghost Chat. And so tonight is a very important game for Freedom, because if he wins, he'll be comfortably up there at the 5th slot. But if he loses, it'll now take the last match against Ghost Chan head to head for that playoff slot. And so that's why it's a very important game here for Freedom, to not let it get to that last match against Ghost Chan.
Yep.
So, since we have our player here, let's bring in Neutrophil as well. Joining us now is Neutrophil, who's going to be playing against KJ Freedom here. So, KJ, let's start with you. I've already talked about the scenario behind what's going to be happening. How important is this game for you tonight?
Well, you just said how important it is. Now, the likelihood of me winning is going to be about the same or worse than the chance of me beating Dark Menace. Just because I hadn't won against either of those two in like a year.
And
my
so to
Terran.
recap, last week you did face Dark Menace, and it was a clean 2-0. But the question here is, if he doesn't play Protoss, if Neutrophil does not play Protoss, how do you like your chances now?
Well, yeah, a lot better if he does. If he doesn't play Protoss, it's better chances for sure. How good? I think it's even, or I'm slightly ahead if he gets either of those two races.
Gotcha. All right, so now, Neutrophil, are you playing Protoss tonight or not?
So, sorry, kind of the same thing I did with Frieden. I'm gonna start with Protoss. If things go well, I might do an off-race game, but
Gotcha.
yeah, it's kind of fun.
All right, it's gonna be fun. ET, you have any questions here for our players? All right, not sure if we lost ET, but let me get the game started and hosted here. It's gonna be pretty exciting. If you show our map picks, let's actually talk about this. You guys, let's see. Neutrophil picked 2,000 atmospheres. It's not really a big surprise. Everybody picks that. But Freedom, any reason picking Blackburn, or you just kind of whichever map goes?
I got a lot of cheeses I can do on Blackburn, so.
Ooh. All right. Now it gets really interesting, and then we're gonna finish it with Glittering Ashes if necessary. But let's invite our players here in our lobby. And
So let's make sure ET's back, and then we're gonna.
yeah.
I am here. Sorry, I had to
Alright.
grab
Alright, there you go.
another bottle of water.
No
I'm
worries.
charging through them.
Any questions here for our players, ET?
No, I'm just looking forward to seeing this. This is exciting.
All right. Well, I'm gonna head over to the gaming area, so I'll see you guys in a bit.
All right, I'll give you a few seconds to get there. In the meantime, I'm guessing Dark Menace will be taking over the production once he takes a seat there. Actually, are we gonna have KJ Freedom's camera since the camera is pointed to the production? But we'll see. We'll find out what's going on here. But in the meantime, I will mute KJ the player. All right, there we go. So he is not using the KJ player as. Got it. All right, I think we're good to go. We've sorted that out. I think we'll make sure we're good. So it looks like we are good. And I'm gonna hand it back to you, ET, and let's get started.
All right, let's go. Everybody, welcome. It's our last match of the night. We're already 3 hours in. Holy! All right, we're heading into 2,000 atmospheres to kick off our final series of the night. If you have been enjoying, make sure to drop a follow. This will be live every Wednesday and Friday for the next little while. And then it'll be next season after that. Here we go.
You are watching FSL Season 5.
Alrighty, in the upper right-hand side of 2,000 Atmospheres LE, we have our red Terran player. He is
KJ Freedom.
And his opponent, the purple Protoss. He is
Neutrophil.
already going out for a pretty quick scout, piloting on the high ground, so potentially going to be a little aggressive. Maybe not, though. Probably not. Now, 2,000 Atmospheres, funnily enough, has 2 Reaper jump spots on it. A lot of maps only have 1 into the main base. There's 2 different spots you have to block. I believe they're each blockable with a pylon, though. And the workers do butt heads in the middle. So Freedom should know that that probe is going to start harassing his SCV on his barracks. TVP, a pretty fun matchup. I am a fan of TVP, and he's going to try and lock him in, I think? No, he's just defending. Okay. I'm a fan of TVP. I think it's a good matchup. Very entertaining, at times at least. Okay, and we do have an eBay block. It's one of the risks of putting your buildings on the high ground. It makes it extra long until you see this, and he comes down to build his Nexus, and no beans, no memes. I don't think that's a saying, but oh well. We do just have him drop the Cybercore. He's going to crown out his Zealot. Now, the correct response here is to pull, I believe it's 6 probes, like as soon as you see this, and just kill it. So it's going to be a little bit of a delayed nat here for Neutrophil, quite delayed, in fact. Will be very good for KJ, so long as he does not... Oh, and he even tries to kill the SCV, and it causes it delayed even further. So long as he cancels this eBay and doesn't just lose 125 minerals for free, it'll be very good for him. And cancel. 94 back. Very nice. I like the probe skin that we're rocking here from Neutrophil. I think it's just the classic Brood War probe. And so Freedom starts to build that, so then the SCV that comes home can finish it and he can start his command center. That's pretty dope. I like that. It's pretty cute. Looking cute, KJ. Zealot of Neutrophil just goes to the watchtower to fill vision. I like that. And going for a quick sentry. No tech just yet. Kind of surprisingly out of Neutrophil. Your base is so late, you'd expect them to want to get something going on the other side of the map, tech-wise, but doesn't seem to be the case just yet. Twilight Council and Robo now dropping. And continuing to probe, so he is actually still up in probes. As the natural base of KJ will finish barely ahead, I think, of that of the Protoss. So, doesn't wind up with much of a lead, if any lead at all, in terms of the Nat. But I think that actually means that it's good for him, because I'm pretty sure the Protoss Natural usually finishes up a little bit before the Command Center of the Terran. Nonetheless, Phoenix Scout does go out. There is a Cyclone already coming out, and Charge is being chrono boosted, so we're going to have a little bit of a cheeky Charge all in, I think. Not a Neutrophil here. So KJ adding on an additional barracks and a starport. Does have that bunker in the front. And we're going to have 4 gateways, it looks like, I think. Or no, is it just 3? Just 3. Just 3 gateways in charge. So maybe not an all-in, just a little bit of a pressure potentially. As the first medevac is on its way out for KJ, I expect we'll see a tank maybe next after the Cyclone. Tech Lab coming down on that extra barracks for Stim. And just continuing to pump more and more Marines. Double Cyclone will help against Immortals and Warp Prisms in the early game, but eventually Cyclones do fall off. Looks like he is going to move out on the map, try and get a little bit done with them, which I do like. He is adding on a 3rd gas in his natural base, and that Stim Pack does indeed start up. Siege Tank on the way as well. Pretty significant worker lead for Neutrophil, as the SCV creation has not been the most consistent out of KJ. Does manage to kill the probe that was moving to take the 3rd, so that's a nice little boon for him there. Stalkers do begin getting warped in as Charge is finishing up in the near future. Liberator now on the way. Pump 3 Marines at a time as well. More and more shield batteries coming down for Neutrophil. So playing it very safe here. Stim getting towards halfway done. No 3rd base on the way for Freedom just yet. But no supply block on the way for him yet either. Thinking emoji. As Templar Archives is coming down. Forge on the way as well. And KJ, I think, is over mining his gas by quite a bit here. He's only got like 4 SCVs on his natural base. In terms of mineral mining, which I think is not the play. Neutrophil is looking to move out. There's only 1 tank out. There is a Liberator. 2nd tank is now popping, and a 2nd Lib on the way as well, but they're not really set up in any sort of defensive position. Oh man, I think KJ is moving out. KJ is indeed moving out. He's going to find the army with his Liberator and Medevac, which means really his Liberator and Medevac are going to get found, I think. He does narrowly see them. We'll be able to pull back now. So he now knows that Neutrophil is out on the map. He's trying to do a tank push into the 3rd of Neutrophil. And Neutrophil is looking to do a push into his 3rd, I think, as well. But KJ is actually going for what appears to be a bit of a 2-base all-in. As no 3rd base has started just yet. And no upgrades either. Would have liked to see maybe a +1, but not the end of the world by any means. Neutrophil does see the army sitting there. It is a powerful army for Freedom, especially as there is 0 blink, which is a pretty major part of dealing with Liberators, is having blink. So with siege tanks covered by Liberators, it can be quite a hard defense to pull off. But he sieges up the Libs too early, potentially. Neutrophil is targeting them down, but is losing a lot on the flip side of things. Tanks should be able to siege up now. Do kill an Immortal right away. Only 4 charge lots out thus far, and does manage to kill the overcharged battery, but loses so much for it. I'm not sure if it's going to end up being able to push through. Does have 3 tanks sieged up now, and we'll be able to take out all the shield batteries. I think if he can, even a little turret started, it won't end up mattering, but a good idea just in case there are air units coming out. And should be able to maybe take down this 3rd base here. For Neutrophil, he's going to have to continue warping in. He is only on 4 gateways, though, so he can't warp in the most amount of units in the world. Neutrophil maybe going to look for a flank, but now there is a Liberator out once more, although it's not doing anything. KJ pushes up slightly with the tanks. Will siege them. His Liberator does siege up as well. There's now Storm and Blink out. Tanks sieging up as well. Cyclone manages to get itself a Stalker, but will possibly perish on the flip side of things. No, a nice repair out of KJ. I like that indeed. And a strong push coming out of him initially. He's up 50 army supply to 35. He's got 4 tanks. He's got a Liberator. More tanks, more Marines pushing out. Neutrophil hiding a 3rd base, but not sure if that's going to be enough here. As there are just a lot of tanks. Shield batteries already being drained of energy with the tanks sieging down on those Zealots. Actually moves back so he doesn't have vision of them anymore. A little unfortunately, that's just like free damage right there. Liberator looking to come into the main base potentially. Found the Warp Prism at least, and I think has just chased it all the way home. will get taken out by the Stalkers of Neutrophil. Tanks continuing to push up. Bunkers going down. Bonkers amount of bunkers. And if it does finish up, they'll create a very powerful position, and the tanks are defending them, so it's going to be very hard to take them out. A fantastic initial attack out of KJ Freedom here in game number 1. The bust is being attempted. The siege tanks may be taken out. 2 of them are, but a bunker is now finished up, and there's only 1 Immortal and 1 Stalker left, with a little sprinkle of Warp Prism in there to micro. And now he's going to have to retreat into his main base, which means he's going to lose his natural, and even with that hidden third base, that's going to be pretty painful here. He's going to try and sneak some Zealots out, I think, to flank here. Liberator is now set up. And the tanks, 1 may get taken out. Indeed it will. But with the bunker there, does help. Oh, and the Liberator even entices a Stalker to run into it and die. Those naughty, naughty Sirens that are Liberators, what can I say? Marines are continuing to take down more and more probes in the natural base here. There's a little bit of a repair going on, so a Stalker does go down in exchange for that Liberator. But now all the units of KJ are very low, and 4 of them are in a medevac. Will have to pull back. It's only 23 workers remaining, though. A third base is on the way for Freedom, and he's sending another large chunk of army across the map. Insanity. War Marines now coming in, and they've got full HP. Concussive shells coming down as well. More and more Marines pumping out. There's Storm researched, actually, and he's got 1,900 gas. So if he just warp in some High Templar, he'd be in a pretty sweet spot. I think that tank will be able to siege down on the natural base pretty soon here if it can't already. Looks like it indeed cannot already, just barely. That is such a close margin, but oh well. Definitely needs more medevacs, this KJ, but instead he's making Ravens, which is a good choice as well. Can shut down Colossi or Immortals. And now 3 bunkers finished up, but there's a fully mining hidden base here. Oh, is KJ scouting for the hidden base with his medevac? Oh no, he's just dropping. Okay, never mind, never mind, never mind. May get pushed back into that hidden base, and indeed he is. The hidden base is found. Zealots do warp in to try and defend it, but a lot of probes are going to go down already anyways. Ooh, KJ should pick up. Instead tries to kite a little bit, but the next army that comes across should be able to just redirect over there and kind of wipe that out, I would think. As indeed it looks like he's gearing up to do something like that. Worker counts are caught up now for Neutrophil, which is nice. And has a strong position here for Freedom, though. Several siege tanks. Marines are now going to charge over, but there's so many Zealots. Oh, no. Freedom, not sure how to deal with this, I think. Finding it a little bit late and losing a lot of Marines. Still does not have more than 1 medevac, which is already completely empty on energy. If he had just 2 full medevacs, it would work out a lot better for him, but oh well. 88 supply to 100 now, and the Immortals are trying to maybe flank around. Find those juicy siege tanks unprotected, perhaps. It looks like Neutrophil is really thinking about going for a bust here. Freedom does have a Raven out somewhere, and he does have a third base finished up, but it's not out mining yet. He's adding on a 4th and still hasn't floated his 3rd over, a little unfortunately there. He definitely should be doing that, I think. And I think this position's about to get broken, and with that, that may just be game. There are no shield batteries to support here, but just massive storms raining down on the Army of Freedom, and I think he got himself into a really good position and just didn't know what to do from there, maybe. Was not able to close it out, unfortunately. And now he's down almost 40 supply. does have a big defensive setup at home and maybe can survive. Maybe Neutrophil will throw himself into the Fenrir-esque wall. Who knows? Can drop a lot of mules at that third base to start getting some mining going, and it looks like he has indeed done that. Yeah, a lot of mules. 8 mules in total, I believe. And we can see his economy now spiking up to match that of the Protoss. Now an anti-armor missile will make it so the Immortals are not able to push that wall very soon at all. There's only one Stalker out, which means the Vikings just kind of say, whatever, bro, and kill his Warp Prism. And a drop at the, a Banshee at the base of Neutrophil does get pushed back by some Stalkers, but kills 3 probes. And is able to mine from that other base. Now has a lot of money where he did not before. That's very nice for him. Sending out a drop as well. Does get scouted by a Zealot at the third base. And the Viking does find 3 probes before it gets absolutely annihilated by 2 Immortals. Not too bad for him there, though. But it looks like Neutrophil has found the third base of Freedom. And unlike Neutrophil, you don't have charge lots. So that will have to lift up and run away, I do believe. Oh, but the Banshee finding more damage as well. Kills 3 more probes before falling at 6 probes in total from the Banshee. Oh no! The drop barely makes it out of the medevac, as did not drop it out properly. And will end up losing all the Marines to a juicy Storm. Does force out 2 Storms, kills a few more probes, but needs a whole lot more than that when it's 36 army supply to 95. I think KJ just doesn't know how to establish a third base. That's what it appears to be. He's trying to go for like mass Banshee, I guess, which could work, but it's just so late into the game at this point. There's so many Immortals out for Neutrophil. Paper Flight Rotors is on the way. Cloak on the way as well, and +2 for his infantry. But it is going to be very hard to move out and take any sort of expansion here. We'll be able to kill more probes. It's a very low economy situation for both players. And KJ is able to do more and more economy damage, but I just don't know that it's going to be enough economy damage. Has almost evened up the worker counts here with this Raven harass, which is quite nice for him. Raven just barely makes it into the airspace to survive, which is nice. Neutrophil's army was looking for that expansion, but it's already left. Third base does float out, and the army moves in. Not after the mules drop, though, so that is nice for them at least. I mean, with the absolute dearth of anti-air, or is it dearth? I don't know. With the extreme lack of anti-air that Neutrophil has, although he's going into carriers now, these Banshees and Liberators will be able to keep Freedom safe for a while, but it's only a little while, especially with Stalkers already warping in. And those Liberators are pushed too far back. They need to be farther up. And there's no tanks here either. And now the mules have dropped. They're pushing up now. Are the Libs? Siege quickly, my lads. So he does have 4 Liberators. A 5th one not sieged quite yet. There's some Banshees as well. Neutrophil may just try and go around this army. Could maybe move the tanks up to help support as well. I believe he has a few in the natural, but not moving those up just yet. Trying to go for Sky Terran, which is always a really cool idea, but unfortunately I don't think the game developers like it, because it's never been a super meta strategy. He is trying his best. He's going to send out a Liberator squad to try and harass as well. He's sending his Hyperflight Rotor Banshees over to fight Neutrophil's Stalkers that have shield batteries, unfortunately. So not going to work out there. May find the 4th base of Neutrophil, though, and be able to get some work done there. Oh, finds 2 free Stalkers. But Neutrophil's going to charge in and I think clean up game number 1. An unfortunate loss here for Freedom. There is no detection, so the Banshee's putting in work. And putting in work in the natural base of Neutrophil as well. Going to depower the Stargates. Can it be done? Can it happen? He has a large bank, so it doesn't matter too much that he doesn't have a ton of mining. And the Observer is going to get denied. Are there any Observers out? There's actually no detection out except an Oracle. That Oracle could come home, but unfortunately, I mean, the energy's running out on these Banshees. They don't have Permacloak. We can't all be DTs. What can I say? As KJ now desperately trying to long-distance mine as he's almost out of money. He's not almost out of money, but he's like entirely out of mining. So that means he's going to be out of money soon. Immortals going to be able to push through this army, I think. Storms on top of the Banshees, because what else are you going to storm? It's doing something. Well, maybe able to push him back. If he can clear out this army, that's nice, but he's just got no infrastructure left. All the Banshees are revealed, and 4 Banshees aren't very good against any amount of carriers, unfortunately. Freedom fighting for his life, but I just don't know that's going to be enough. Trying to get out the Yamato cannon upgrade, but unfortunately, can't get out any BCs. Neutrophil, a good comeback here. I think Freedom could have maybe pushed his advantage a little bit better. Didn't take that third base as quickly as he could have. Wasn't making SCVs. And wound up really hurting him here. Good harassment, but just not quite enough in game number 1, it looks like. He is still harassing with Banshees, but I don't think it's going to be what he needs it to be here. He's at half the supply of his opponent at the moment, and he's not really making an army that can kill the army his opponent is making. As the Banshees do decloak, have to run away. Will make it out with 2, as they do have Hyperflight Rotors, so that is nice. He can still mule with his 2 orbital commands he has left. Has a good number of Marines, gonna go for a double drop. I don't think a double drop's going to do very well, but he's going to go for it. He's got to go for it. He doesn't have other options here, as his only mining base, I think, is about to be found by the army of Neutrophil, unless it gets pulled back to deal with these Banshees. Or these Ravens. There's a lot of things that can get pulled back to deal with, I guess. But nope, it looks like it's going to push north into the base of KJ Freedom. And that will, well, I say that, but he's walking right past it. He's got a lot on his mind at the moment. He's got to deal with a double Marine drop in his main base. This might force a recall. There you go. Oh, it's 1 Immortal. Oh, I don't think he knows about the DT. Either doesn't know or he doesn't have a scan. Still good damage. Does not force the full recall, though, which was really needed here to save this base. The base will now fall. And GG's called. Okay. Yeah, pretty good overall, I would say there. Out of both players. Narrowly taking it does Freedom, though. Seth, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I thought that he was going to make a more aggressive push with those bunkers, but because he got a little bit passive, it allowed Neutrophil to set up a good 360 surround on that. And I think that was a really good move there by Neutrophil. The hidden base was there long enough for it to really pay dividends, and I think that was the difference in that, him being able to break out, because otherwise he would have been stuck in a base and a half mining, and I don't think that would have been enough to be able to break through. But it's a really KJ Freedom. It was It really took out the third right away and then got all the way to his natural. But then I think he got a little bit conservative on that push. He had the Liberators to really make us crawl, but a few Liberators fell unnecessarily, I think. But otherwise, it was a good all-around game, but the difference really was that third base that Neutrophil was able to hide and mine enough to be able to make enough units to break through. So it's a good game. So ET, I know you had to step out real quick, but we'll wait for ET to come back.
Oh, I am back. And I was going to say, yeah, it's very true. It felt a little bit to me like KJ knew that the Liberators were supposed to be sieged up, and he knew that the tanks were supposed to be sieged up, but they were usually sieged kind of disjointedly. Like the Liberators were too far out from the siege tanks to where the stalkers could snipe them without the tanks actually hitting them.
Yeah, because usually the tanks and the Liberators provide a good synergy with each other, where the tanks provide cover against those blinking stalkers to snipe them, and vice versa. But yeah, you're right. They were somewhat disjointed, and I think that allowed Neutrophil to really hold that long enough for him to mount a counter to it. So, but anyway, game number 2. ET, take it away.
All right, will do. Here we go, guys. It's Blackburn LE. We're loading into the game.
FSL Season 5.
Alrighty, in the bottom right-hand side of Blackburn LE, our red Terran, he is
KJ Freedom.
And his opponent in the bottom left, the orange Protoss player, he is
Neutrophil.
And it looks like Neutrophil maybe saying, well, that was hard enough that I don't think I want to swap to my off race. And so he is sticking with Protoss. Solid choice, I'd say. Gotta kind of protect your spot in the top 3 of the playoffs. If you, I think he's dropped 2 series up to this point, which is fine. You're still top 3 at that point. But if you drop 3 or more, it's a little bit more difficult to secure that 3rd place or 2nd place spot to make your playoff bracket just that much easier, right? So we will see if he can manage to close it out here. Looking good so far for sure. As Freedom does block his probe in place. Sheltering in place is the probe of Neutrophil. Although not really by choice. I guess sheltering in place generally isn't super voluntary. Like it's like, yeah, you could go elsewhere, but a bomb is gonna drop on you, or a tornado is gonna hit you. So it's like, do you have a choice? Deep stuff, but we're not here for philosophy. We're here for StarCraft. As the Reaper is on the way for Freedom, natural base dropping down for Neutrophil as well, and that orbital command coming in. Factory as well. Reaper will be finishing up soon. Will it be soon enough to protect this poor, innocent SCV? Well, if the probe says, all right, fine, I'll walk away, then yes, for sure. This forces the Reaper to delay slightly longer. 2nd Reaper on the way. Factory. A little over halfway done. So we do have Stalkers coming out now for Neutrophil. Might see a little bit of a Hellion Reaper pressure here. Maybe a 3 Hellion or 2 Hellion 3 Reaper pressure. Not sure. We'll see. Reaper does hop up into the main base, but is found by that Stalker. We'll be able to get away scot-free. Okay, so it's just a 2nd Reaper and then a Reactor on the factory. Starport dropping down as well. No 3rd base, but there is a bunker to present the illusion of a 3rd base, the allure of a 3rd base, so to speak. And it's going to be a really quick 4 Widow Mine with Armory drop, I think, and the Reapers are kind of just designed to keep your opponent as busy as possible. It seems like KJ really has the juicy cheeses and stuff in this matchup. He forces a force field out of the sentry, which means no hallucination scout anytime soon. Saka. which is pretty good for him. May even be able to find that sentry as well. Nope, not quite. We'll have to run away now as there are Dos Stalkerinos out. But the first 2 mines are just about to finish up. 2 more will be on the way soon, and I imagine we'll see a natural base coming down now. Yep, as well as an engineering bay, just in case there's any sort of DTs or he needs turrets against oracles, anything like that. Charge now on the way, and detection isn't even a twinkle in the eye of Neutrophil at this moment. 2 more mines about to finish up. If he can burrow all of these mines, 2 in the main, 2 in the net, something like that. That kind of rhymed. 2 in the main, 2 in the net, something like that. That'll be very good for him. Obviously. Somewhat obviously, I would argue. But anyways, we'll see exactly what happens here. The natural base about halfway done for Freedom. Obviously, Neutrophil has a lot more mining at the moment. But if KJ can get lucky, that's all about the change. Medevac slips between the Stalkers. The mines do burrow. Gets a Stalker and 2 probes, and oh, what's that? No detection? Insert Megamind meme. No detection? Alright, so, Robo's a little over halfway done. That means these mines should get off at least 1 more set of shots, if not 2. KJ is dropping out 1 more mine. Oh! 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 10 probes, dude. Oh my gosh. KJ gets a massive shot! Oh, 6 more probes! And the mines in the main base are still ready to fire, I believe. This is disastrous for Neutrophil here, who's down to only 11 workers. Sub-start on his worker count. And, hot diddly dang, I suppose. Mines in the net probably should just get up and run, right? Just unburrow and walk out of there, right? I mean, may as well. You're not going to be able to kill anything else, most likely. Widow meme did go off on something. Not sure what. Neutrophil's trying to micro here. It's tough. Does manage to clean up just about all the mines. Going to go for that last one here as well. Open it! He force-fielded himself out of the main! And now another medevac's going in. Alright, mines do burrow, but shouldn't get any major hits, I don't believe. Yeah, does not get any major hit there. Still though, KJ in a pretty good spot, has another double mine drop ready to go. And this Widow mine will finally get cleaned up with 12 kills on it. And now the Marines and Marauders are starting to get produced as well. He's got an engineering bay, he's got STEM going. Could get +1 in the near future as well, and a pretty commanding lead, I'd say, for Freedom at this point. Still, though, probably similar to how it would be for me. Not as much of a commanding lead as it could be. Not as commanding as it could be. Oh, no. Oh, no. Don't do it to him. Okay, does reburrow, but does not quite manage to do it in time. And thusly, yeah, Freedom's just trying to keep the screws to his opponent, so to speak. Oh, and the Stalkers are looking to go down and deal with these Marins. Quick, force field your ramp again, Neutrophil. I promise, it'll be worth it. Oh, and now, another dive into the main base. There's a cannon there, but it's not done yet. Oh, burrow, 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 burrow. 2 probes. Lost mining time. Oh, and now the Marines and Marauders coming in for Freedom. And they don't have STEM yet, but there's a lot of them. There is Charge Zealots out, though, which is nice for Neutrophil. More medevacs than Freedom made in his entire last, like, 20-minute game he had. Already, 8 minutes into the game. So that's pretty nice for him. This is going to be a bust, though. He needs to just lift up and get out, I'd say. Oh, maybe not. I underestimate, I guess, the power of Marine Marauder. And now they have Stim coming in as well. If anything, that force field almost helped him against the Zealots. Now beaten down on the natural base of Neutrophil is Freedom. Marines trying to run away from the Zealots. Marauders now targeting down some of the Stalkers. And it's a scrappy back and forth fight, but it's 73 supply to 33. And similarly to Freedom in the last game, Neutrophil does not want to leave this until he is forced to, with 2 Widow Mines now on the low ground. And a big chunk of bio with Stem. I just don't see a cleanup happening here anytime soon. Probe does sacrifice itself to draw out a mine shot, but there's just a stream of bio pouring across the map. 1 Immortal on its way out, but it will only be so helpful. And alas, another force field was not there this time around. Oh, did he lose his Observer? He lost his Observer, by the way, guys. So these are perma-cloaked mines again. GG's! It definitely feels like Blackburn is kind of Freedom's map. he does some pretty nasty things to people on that map, for sure. Well, we see that continuing in game number 2. It's funny, though, to a certain extent, I wonder if he would accomplish just about the same things with the same builds on different maps, but he just doesn't even try because it's not Blackburn, you know? It's a good question. It's a good question. But anyways. We are heading into our final game. It's going to be Glittering Ashes LE. Same as the previous series. Or not the previous series, I guess 2 series ago. Hyper Turtle versus the Archaic. So, pretty cool map. I'm a fan of this map, I think. Glittering Ashes. So, we'll be heading in there, and that'll be our final game of the night. We won't be back for an entire whole 2 days until Friday, when we'll have more matches for you guys to look forward to. Alrighty. We're loading in.
You are watching FSL Season 5.
In the upper right-hand side of the map, he's tied it up 1-1. In the red, he is
KJ Freedom.
And his opponent in the bottom left, the orange Protoss player, he is
Neutrophil.
All right. Well, Freedom's SCV is moving out across the map. Neutrophil also sending out a probe. We'll have to see what the players opt for in this game. More aggression out of Freedom, most likely. He's a very aggro Terran in 1v1s. It's kind of funny to see the difference between him and team games with Terran and 1v1s with Terran. Team games, he's like, my first building isn't even a barracks, it's a factory, so I can make tanks and siege them up at my own base. And then, on the flip side of things, you've got his 1v1s, where he's always proxying and things like that. So he's done a barracks in the main base, but he's also proxying a second barracks. This might be that criminal build we saw a few weeks ago against, I want to say, Cyan, where he went like Marines at home and then Marauders from the proxied barracks. If that's the case, that's really cool. I'd love to see how that stacks up against Neutrophil, because it's a very cool build, but it's always cool to see how it performs at a slightly higher level, right? And obviously, Code S is directly above Code A, so it works out great. All right. In they go. You know, I was just thinking, by the way, I'm just going to pontificate until we see exactly what winds up happening here. Third barracks is going down. It's going to be concussive shell Marauders. Told you. But I was just thinking, if they do another Psystorm Cup in the near future, we should definitely just have like a one-day FSL style tournament there as well as the main tournament. Just like a little bit more of a casual tournament, you know, Diamond Cap or something like that. It'd be cool, but we'll see. I'll have to pitch that. We'll see what happens. That would be pretty dope. And anyways, the Adept's going across the map. It's going to miss the Marauders and whatnot coming out for Freedom. But Freedom's not actually making any units at home. So this is slightly different from Criminal's build. Criminal only went 2 barracks, not 3, and he was producing at home rather than out here. But it's going to be double barracks Marauder, actually, interestingly enough. The tech for Neutrophil is a Robo, but it's a little bit late. He's just now scouting with his Adept to see that there is no natural base. But Freedom will see that this is indeed a no natural base kind of scenario. Won't be able to see up into the main base. Might think it's another Widowmine drop, though. And with double Marauders being pumped out, I think if he goes with 5 Marauders and maybe these 4 Marines that are coming out here, that could be really good for him. We'll see exactly what's happening. Next 2 Marauders do pop out. There is a shield battery, but Marauders can make quick work of a shield battery. Oh, he's just doing like a really funky 3 racks off 1 base. So he's getting stim and combat shields. He's just going to go in with a big army. I mean, this might hit late enough that Neutrophil might start second guessing, you know, like whether or not it really is an all-in. Because it's going to hit in about a minute. And that's really way later than you'd expect a 1 base to hit. So this may catch Neutrophil extremely off guard. He is continuing to scout, so that's good discipline out of Neutrophil there. We'll see there's not much going on in the main base, and then he's going to be real confused. Maybe he'll think it's a proxy base, like a hidden base as well. Who knows? 1 Marauder is getting left behind, despite the No Left Behind Act passed by Obama in 2009. I don't actually remember which year it was. But anyways, Marauder is getting left behind. We really need to wait for STEM, I think. And it's nearly here. Maybe not, though, with the extra batteries coming down. Okay, he's got to go. He's got to go. You got to go. You've been seen. Maybe he's going to wait for STEM after all. 10 seconds away. Oh, and the army might be too far out from the shield batteries. 6, 5. Oh, you got to go back, KJ. Oh, no. I think this build is reaching the precipice, and it's about to fall off the edge, unfortunately. It's about to reach the too late point. Looks like he's just pulling the rest of his SCVs, maybe, and is going to go with all of those when the time comes. Yep, pulling more SCVs. He's going to go with everything he's got. Will he be able to do it? Neutrophil just continuing to warp in more and more, and sending a warp prism across the map. He might actually want that to be able to micro with it on the other side, but that won't be the end of the world, I suppose. A scan to kill this observer would be nice, just so Neutrophil doesn't know exactly what's going on. Neutrophil's pulling all his probes. He's getting ready to fight with everything, and I like the choice. Does target down the overcharged battery, and then will fight the probes head on. But yeah, I think it's just too little, too late, unfortunately, for Freedom here. We'll be able to target down that Immortal, but the Adepts are just going to be so strong here. A cool build. I think he just hit a little bit too late with it. I think you got to go earlier on, especially once you're scouted. And it looks like Neutrophil will take the series 2-1 here. There's only 11 workers to 30 for Neutrophil. You should even be able to find the proxied barracks of Freedom here as well. Freedom, of course, will try his best, but it's just such a hard scenario, and GG.
Alright, GG's. Now we'll give KJ some time here to relocate back to... Oh, there he is. He's back to the production slot. GG's, gentlemen. Good job, Neutrophil. But let's start with KJ Freedom. Game number 1, I think you had him on the ropes. Well, first, can you hear us, KJ?
Yeah. Yeah. I can hear
Okay. Game number 1, you had him on the ropes there. Kind of had him pinned in. But then, it took a little bit longer, I think, that you would have liked. And
Yeah.
also, when did you find out that there was a hidden third there?
When you saw me find it. That's
And so, what was your reaction when you found it? Did you?
I thought I was
'cause-
in great shape until I saw that. Then I'm like, oh, okay, never mind. So.
Gotcha. And then game number 2, it was a well-prepared build, lots of Widow Mines and more Widow Mines, and then some. I guess that's what you were talking about and the reason why you like Blackburn?
Yeah, there's a lot of things you can do on Blackburn, right? You can do drops, very close. You can do Reaper cheeses. There's all kinds of things you can do, so.
And then last one is game number 3. That was pretty much an all-in Marauder, pull the boys.
Yeah, I did the timing
But
wrong on that, so.
Yeah, what I was gonna ask is, I think if you hit just about, 15 seconds maybe? 10, 15 seconds a little bit earlier, I think that would have worked if the stim finished at that time as well. But, what went wrong there, and what could you have done better in that third game?
I didn't really do the build right. I don't really know the build timing on that. I just kind of winged it, so as you can see, it was late because of that.
Gotcha. ET, do you have any questions here for KJ?
Yeah, so I was going to ask, was that sort of inspired by Criminal when he used a very similar build against Cyan?
No, a criminal wouldn't inspire me. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Alrighty.
We will
No,
clip
I
that.
got that from, you see that from the games where Max Pax plays like Marine Lord or somebody. That's where like,
okay.
Those are pretty common builds, so.
Gotcha. And I
Probably
think it's
should
just
have,
a few tweaks on that.
Well,
If
I
it
should
hits
tweak
just
it.
a
I
little bit
should look
earlier.
at the actual build and do it. But I didn't prepare, so I just kind of winged it. So as you can see, it didn't really work out that well.
Yeah. All right. Any final words before we talk to Neutrophil about that game?
It was better than I played better than I thought I would. And scared him enough to play Protoss all 3 games. So there you go. It worked out.
Yeah, he did play Protoss all 3 games. But congratulations to Neutrophil. You did get forced to play your main race. So game number 1, you looked like you were very patient with that push, right? You saw tanks, you saw a ton of bunkers being placed. But then you were like, all right, you know what? I got this. What was going through your head? Were you really confident that, yeah, I've done this many times, I can break through anytime I want?
So, obviously I kept that observer alive so I could constantly see how much army he had there. And, I realized he didn't actually have that much, and he kept, like, trying to fortify that stuff. He kept investing in all his bunkers and his pistol turrets, right? So, I was kind of thinking I would just let him kind of set up here. And he didn't find my third yet, so I was starting to build up there. I got Storm on the way, and I just figured I could just, like, surround and finish that off. And that kind of paid off, so...
Yeah, that was a really important game because otherwise, game number 2, you got Widow Mine to death. Tell us about that one.
Honestly, I'm really mad about that game. I've kind of figured the Widow Mines were coming, but I was also expecting kind of like an early tank push or something. So that's why I rushed out the charge. But then I kind of miscontrolled on my probes there. I lost like, I don't know how it was, at least a dozen on that one hit. And then it kind of just went downhill from there.
Gotcha. And then game number 3, you saw, I guess, when did you know that it was an all-in? Was when you scouted that there was no natural, or was late, a lot later than that? Or were you surprised by the strat that was employed?
So, yeah, I was always looking for a proxy or something. I noticed he always closes the top of his ramp, gets my probe trapped in there, so I can't really see what he's up to. So I just left it at the bottom. I did see he didn't have a base, so I was wondering if he was gonna kind of ninja base fake me out. So that's when I sent the hallucination up, but just to be safe for a proxy. I was chronoing out the immortal. I was getting the batteries up front. I just wanted to be safe there, and yeah, that also worked.
Yeah, it was a really good hold. Textbook defense there for Protoss and defending those early all-ins by the Terrans, but good job. ET, do you have any questions here for
Yeah, so I noticed in, I think, almost every game, if not every game, you went for a pretty quick charge. Is that something you did specifically against KJ, or is that just something you like in PvT in general?
I usually do blink against him, but like after that game against Ghost Gen, where I was just caught without charge and I couldn't hold the tank push, I just wanted to get it to be safe.
Okay. That makes sense. That was all the questions I had.
All right, cool. Good job. Good games. I think this is making our playoff picture clearer and clearer. And let's actually turn it back to KJ here with the production. If we take a look at the standings, I know you have that black theme there, which is pretty cool. It's updated. But if you take a look at the second tab, which shows some colors to indicate who's made it to the playoffs and who has not. And we can take a look at that one. So if you look at the top of that, if we move our cameras, because our cameras are in the way there. There we go. All right. So we see 2v2. As a result, tonight we saw the blind leading to death, unfortunately falling short against Tortoise and Hare. So they're eliminated. The most that they can get are 2 wins, which is not enough to overtake any of the other teams. Benzel as well are eliminated. So it's now a battle of 2 to 4 among the 4 teams there. So GG Izzy is in. There's no scenario where they would be dropped out. But that's the playoff scenario in 2v2. It's going to be exciting how this really shakes out, especially in the playoffs. And then what we talked about before with Code B, Fenrir is a number 1 seed. That's already set. Playoff between Champone and Kitty Cat Gamer. That is going to happen on the Friday, May 6th, because Kitty Cat Gamer could not play on that Wednesday before, so we had to schedule it on that Friday. And then the rest of the standings got clearer even more, but still up in the air. Code A, DRK clinches a playoff spot. There's no scenario where he would be dropped out. And so now the 4 players are fighting for that last 2 slots. Little Reaper cannot improve his situation anymore. He's just going to wait for the others. But I think he's in a good shape there with 9 map wins. So he's in pretty good shape. And then finally, Code S. Based on their wins, I think the top 4 players are in. There's no scenario where they would be kicked out of the playoff slot. So if you can see, there's 1 slot left. And it's going to be a battle between Freedom, among these 3 players. Freedom, Ghost Chant, and Mizel still has a shot because he still has 3 games remaining. So if he 2-0s all of those 3 games, he could easily overtake and win some tiebreakers, even a 3-way tie. So we don't know yet. We'll see how that goes. But that is what it looks like. What do you think about these playoff scenarios, KJ?
Yeah, so for Code S, that looks really tight. It's pretty funny how a 1-4 Mizel still has a chance.
Yeah, I guess he hasn't played a lot lately. He has 3 games, so theoretically he can go 4-4. And that could overtake if yourself or Ghost Chant does not reach the 4-win mark.
Yep.
And so that will depend on him. But his next game, actually, not his last game is going to be the last game of Instability. So it's between him and Instability. Instability is trying to hang on that number 1 seed. His last game is going to be Mizel. So we'll see.
Yeah, pretty cool. It's going to be tight.
Yeah,
I think if I win, I'm in.
Yes, so I think if you win, well, depends on your next game. Because the next game, if you win, I think you're in.
Yeah, I have to.
But if you lose, it'll still come down to some tiebreaker scenario. If it's just the 2 of you, then Ghost Chant gets the tiebreaker. But if it's tied the 3 of you, then it's based on the map wins. So.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Interesting. Alrighty.
Alright, and then just preview for on Friday. We have 4 matches. We might have 5. We'll see if we can make it up. But we'll see if where Benzel stands, if he can even play that 2v2 against Kodeo. But we'll see the Archaic again, play against Deepu. And then Mizel playing against Freedom. And then the big one, which is it's a big playoff implication game here. Ghost Chant against Freedom as well on Friday. So
Yeah, that's a big one.
that's gonna be pretty big. So I think any final words? E.T., thank you for joining us once again. It's a really pleasure of you casting these games. I know we went all 3 games on all 3 matches.
Yeah, and not even particularly short games, really, but it was a lot of fun. Glad to be here.
I'm glad I'm able to give you guys a game 3.
Yeah, it
Almost
was a
pulled it off.
marathon. But yeah, thanks again, ET. Thanks again for everybody who played tonight. Thanks for all those who are watching. Any final words, ET, before we sign off?
No, I don't think so. Just thanks for having me. See y'all next time.
See you next
Alright,
time,
guys,
KJ.
take care. See you guys. I'm good.
See you guys Friday. GG's.
Laters.